HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I'm glad you're excited about Bobby Babbage as defensive coordinator. If you're going to make me the guy, I want to call the plays.
No! Mike Danger.
Sean McDermott is a control freak. And I think everybody kind of recognizes that the Bills' defense, with Sean McDermott calling the plays, looked like a better defense with Sean McDermott having that additional level of control. To give that up, he's going to give up that element of his job and hand it over to a guy who's never done it before, feels like a bit of a reach.
Gene Battaglia.
It's not just calling the plays. That's what we as fans and the media will focus on. It's a big deal. But it's the game plan going into the week. That's kind of what Bobby Babbage should be entrusted. I want Bobby Babbage rolling his sleeves up and figuring out, all right, how do we defend here?
Bobby Babbage? That's a strong name. We can now refer to the offense and defense as Bobby Joe.
We'll see what kind of condition the Sabres are in as a team because they've been better. More consistently inconsistent.
Amerks Crunch, starting at 7 tonight.
Playing Syracuse as many times as we've had to play them over the last 3 years has made us a better team.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Hey there. Good afternoon and welcome on into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. And while we appreciate Ryan Duffy from the Let's Go Buffalo podcast for stopping by the Sports Bar yesterday, it's always good to have Gino back in studio. We feel a little sense of normalcy in the Sports Bar. It's like, trying to run a business with...
Oh, you guys are fine
the
yesterday.
interim. Yeah, love Ryan. Love when he comes in. Love having him. It's good to have you back here. Kuka last night.
Yeah, it's so interesting down there because I love the Finger Lakes. I wish I could get down there more. Love the wineries. Love the view. Kuka's probably my favorite of the lakes just because of the hills. It's very picturesque. Interesting kind of place, though, those Finger Lakes, because you have these like $1 million homes, and then you go a couple miles away, and there's some poverty. So it's like it's not very even out on there.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that in New York State there are the haves and the have-nots?
Well, it's on full display down there. Yeah.
Get out of here. Can we just pave roads or get potholes fixed throughout the city, dude? I know that this. Okay, I'm going to get hyper local for a second because this was an observation I had on the way into work today. Hyper local, and this only applies to you if you're on the west side, if you live like where I live, East Hilton, north of Ridge. I commute every day on 390 north and south, north of 490, right? I take that stretch of 390 every day to and from. And if you've taken that stretch over the course of the last year, you know that there was a massive amount of construction. They're repairing bridges, which I appreciate. Obviously, you don't want to see bridges collapse, and it's infrastructure that you have to get taken care of. They got it done. I famously got a speeding ticket through there. It's sent to me in the mail. I had no idea that I was being,
some auto thing nailed you.
Yeah. Anyways, the construction is done, which is great. Now you don't have to slow down through the traffic zone or through the construction zone. It's all cleared up, but between Ridgeway and Ridge, and again, I'm getting hyper local here, so please, if this doesn't affect you, if you live on the east side, apologies. But if you ever come to our side of town and you travel north of the Ridge, north of Ridgeway, between Ridgeway and the Ridge, that's the stretch where there was a lot of construction. And there are no, the lane lines,
I know what you're talking about. It's like they forgot to do them.
They're not there, dude. They're gone. They're faded or they're gone, entirely gone. I'm like, oh my God, there's no lane markings on this stretch of road. And on a day like today, not a big deal. But on a day where there's going to be snow on the ground, which is inevitable, it's going to be Thunderdome. It's Mad Max. I mean, it's everybody for themselves. Nobody's going to know where the lanes are because you can't see anything because there are no lane markings on the road. I'm like, that feels like something you might want to look into if you're the highway department. It just feels like something unfinished business. We, appreciate all the work you guys did to get everything up and running, and I can't do that job, and we can't do it without you. You make life livable for the rest of us, but that feels like it's a bit of a concern. Maybe.
Unless they're going to reduce it once the weather kind of breaks here a little bit. And I don't know, is that project actually complete, or did they just kind of pull up stakes for the winter here?
I feel like it's done. I mean, there's no more construction zone. There are no more orange road cones anywhere. I mean, there's some barriers, and it's not pretty. I mean, there's a few
I don't think
moments
it's done, dude. I think that's why. That's in the short term, yeah, they probably should have done lines.
Man, I was driving in. I'm like, wait a minute, like where are the lanes? They're not even here. Okay, well, that's fine. Yeah, so the haves and the have-nots in New York State, Gino, shocking to hear you say that exists in such a picturesque place as Keuka Lake and the Finger Lakes region as a whole.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Fisher with 2 wins last night.
Nice.
So thank you to Ryan for filling in yesterday. Love that. And whenever you leave, there's news. I didn't expect the Bills to announce Bobby Babich yesterday. So we still can talk about that because that's kind of interesting how McDermott's going to manage this whole thing.
Yeah. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills later on this afternoon. About an hour from now, we'll be joined by Sal Capaccio, and we'll get his thoughts on this promotion for Bobby Babich. We'll also discuss the departure of Eric Washington and the task at hand for this Bills coaching staff. Now, a couple of vital roles that still need to be filled, and you've got a couple of young guys in their positions with Joe Brady and with Bobby Babich that are going to be somewhat responsible for filling these holes that now exist in the coaching staff.
Yeah, we almost forget that when Dorsey was fired, you need a quarterback coach. That was Brady kind of doing everything. Or do you? I mean, what would Josh Allen be best served at? Do you want one of his buddies that can be like, hey, Josh, take the underneath stuff? Or do you bring in somebody that is like a whisperer from the outside that has never met Josh Allen? I don't know the answer to that. A lot of people speculating that if Tampa decides to kind of, just completely redo their offensive staff, that Thad Lewis might be a guy in play, quarterback tier, and the Bills brought him up for an interview. So there's also that possibility.
I want to say he interviewed for the Bucs OC position as well.
He
they
did,
might promote him from within. That would seem like a logical step for Thad Lewis, unless they don't believe he's ready for that responsibility. It would certainly be a pretty quick rise for Thad Lewis, who's been rising through the coaching ranks here since retiring from the NFL.
Yeah, Josh Allen, for all his warts, he does strike me as a guy who is coachable. I mean, the way he deals with the media, the way he did cut down on turnovers the second half of the season. In the worst opportune moments, though, some of it just kind of, vapor. Goes out the brain there. So, but I mean, who can you bring in that can get to Josh and talk to him?
I feel like this has become an evergreen offseason topic. Like, what is Jordan Palmer up to? Jordan Palmer always does this, always does that. I can't remember who it was that said, it's like, why would Jordan Palmer want to come to the NFL and be a coach? Like, he makes so much money working specifically with quarterbacks, and his like method or whatever he does is off-season training program that he puts them through, and he's got these success stories under his belt. Why would he want to come to the NFL? I'm like, that's a good point. I guess if you're making more money doing your, being an entrepreneur in the NFL might be a little bit more lucrative if you're Jordan Palmer than saying, yeah, I'd like to be a quarterback's coach and rise through the ranks someday.
The entry-level jobs in the NFL on a coaching staff, you are dirt. You're basically sleeping at the facility. You are doing whatever it takes. I mean, it's a lot of work, and if Palmer's had a successful business, like, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of good at it. That's why I always laugh, and this is always evergreen, like, the Bills should consider Jim Kelly. Like, there'll be somebody who will call in on some show at some point. What's Jim Kelly doing? He should be the quarterback coach.
Oh, boy.
No.
Yeah, feels like that might be a little beneath him. PJ Glasser is the host of BetQL's Send It In. You can hear it in the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can watch it on YouTube and on Twitch. He is also our Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, and Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. PJ Glasser stops by, and we'll begin to talk Super Bowl with PJ at 3:25.
So our elected officials, I want to ask PJ this because he deals with all sorts of states, and there's some states that don't have this yet. So I guess, what, should we be grateful? When they rolled this out, I felt like, all right, we're kind of doing this, but they left some things off the table. Meaning, wouldn't it be fun, like, to bet on the length of the national anthem or the color of the Gatorade? I mean, just silly things. On Super Bowl Sundays, you could watch and play along, and it's like pulling a slot machine. But because, that doesn't have anything to do with the contest, we can't do this in New York State. And I'm just wondering, is this for a forever thing, or do they work out the bugs? The other thing I would like to bet on in New York, the draft. Wouldn't it be fun on draft night to actually, I really think you and I would have hit that last year, Danger, and our listeners would have too, because by the end we identified, they're going to take a tight end. And lo and behold, even though Dalton Kincaid maybe not a tight end, he's a
he's a wide receiver.
Yeah,
I mean, they took a wide receiver in the first round last year. I don't know why everybody thinks they're going to do it again this year.
But what does the state think? Like, actually, I'm going to call up Brandon Bean. Listen, Brandon, I've got these odds here. Listen, Gene, we're going to draft. No one is going to tell you who they're drafting.
I'm curious about that as well. New York State. I don't want to look a gift horse. I love that we have legalized sports gambling. I know there's some states that are still fighting to get that done, and I'm you know me, I'm a FanDuel guy. I love me some FanDuel, and I'm on there every day, and I've got some wagers in every day, just because it's more fun for me that way. And you know, I'm lucky that, you know, I can ride it out. I've got some wins, I've got some losses. Everything kind of comes out in the wash. But when it's all said and done, I can have fun every night with whatever action I have out there. So I'm not. That's me. I'm not a degenerate, am I? Maybe I'm a degenerate.
No.
But I would say that for the casual sports fan, what we're talking about here is certainly a point of entry, right? Like, if we're all getting together for the Super Bowl and the executive producer wants to place a wager on the length of the, you know, we're talking about our action, and they say, hey, I want to place a bet on the length of the national anthem. Should be able to do that.
Cutaways of Taylor Swift, fun things like that somebody, but because there's somebody who could actually control that, this is the way they think. They won't allow that.
Yeah, I understand that as well, though. I do understand that as well, because it has nothing to do with the actual competition on the field, the actual skill of what you're seeing on the field. And I think that's the part of it. The skill element of it is what you bet on.
Okay, how about this? MVP voting. Wouldn't you like to bet a future thing on the NBA? Because right now, if Embiid misses a few more games, he's not getting the MVP with this new rule. So who else would you look at? Fun exercise, but ultimately we can't make money off of that in New York State.
Well, it'll be a good conversation with PJ. We'll talk to him about that here as we get. I mean, look, it's Super Bowl week. I got to imagine for the sports books, that's where they rake, right? I mean, like, you make more money that week if you're a sports book than I would imagine any other week. On a single event, certainly.
Are you kidding me?
There's no other event that compares. So
that's going to be the storyline the Monday after the Super Bowl, right? Of course, or Chiefs and 49ers winning. It's, hey, this was the most watched, this was the most gambled, this was the biggest Super Bowl ever.
I haven't looked up the figures, but I have to imagine that we're talking about billions in terms of how much money this is brought into the state of New York, right? It makes the idea of them giving the millions that they gave to the Pagulas for a stadium feel like that was found money. Like, we didn't have this, now we do. Here, take this, and maybe there was a little bit more at play with that in terms of the actual casinos in our state and the Native American casinos in our state. But we'll dive into that with PJ here in a few. You can see PJ on BetQL's Send It In on the Twitch stream, also on YouTube, and of course in the free to download Odyssey app. You can join us by calling 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326 if you'd like to pull up a stool. The table is set. Also on Elon's Twitter, X, at the Fan Rochester, if you want to engage with us there. One of our regulars on Twitter, Peter, our pollster, earlier this week, if you weren't listening, Monday, we had a surprise call from a guy disguised as Rick in Rochester. Although we knew Rick in Rochester was actually our nemesis, Jay Binkley from 610 Sports in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Turns out Peter put him up to calling us up to talk about how the Chiefs have owned the Bills, not just in the postseason, but also in the draft, and just rub our noses in it and let us and remind us how little his S stinks. So Peter, kind of like stirring it up a little bit here in the sports bar.
Yeah, Binkley texts me. He's like, hey, do you want me to come on today? And I said this on the air. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, no, but how do I say this politely to Jay? No, you're like the last person I want to talk to, Jay, because you're just going to be like, oh, the Chiefs, yes. Blah, blah, blah. Little I know that Jay was actually listening, and he was teeing this up, and we fell right into his trap. So, Peter, I do not forgive you for that, buddy.
And because of that, Peter, today, we know that you are a Jets fan. Today, we couldn't help but notice a piece cross our feed, specifically on the New York Jets. So I'd like to take a moment here, if we may, for Peter, because we value him as a listener, to talk about just how dysfunctional this team appears to be after another disappointing season where you miss the playoffs. This piece is great.
It's Diana Rossini. Remember her? She was with ESPN, and she jumped over to The Athletic. And, okay, what's she doing at The Athletic? Well, she talked to more than 30 sources. And the majority of this is, and you could say, I always will listen to this, hey, these are unnamed sources. But, Danger, I read this. I think it checks out. And it's not a good look for Robert Saleh. It's certainly not a good look for Nathaniel Hackett. It's not a good look for the owner, who just seemingly gets starstruck by quarterbacks. It paints a team, a franchise right now. It's pretty divided right now, and I don't know if 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming back in next year is going to fix all that.
Well, let's start at the top, because that's where all dysfunction really starts with these organizations. Your owner, week one, I can't get the image of this clown on week one wearing the giant blinged out piece that he had, the necklace, the chain that he had on. I'm like, what
shirt unbuttoned?
Yeah, what are we doing?
What
are we doing? Like, you are the owner of the New York freaking Jets, man. I mean, you imagine Terry Pagula rolling up in a golf cart with like rotating rims or spinning rims or like, what are we doing? So I saw that. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, I kind of knew Woody Johnson runs a dysfunctional organization, but now this paints a clearer picture. If Colin Cowherd wants to get on guys that wear their hat backwards, what do you say about an owner who shows up to week one wearing that giant piece just to draw attention to themselves? You're a clown. You're a clown. Get it together. Respectfully, of course. So you see that first and foremost. You have the track record of going after Brett Favre all those years ago, doing the same thing, falling into the same trap with Aaron Rodgers, leaving Green Bay, and going all in on Rodgers, who lasted a whole 4 plays. And now everything riding on 2024 and the ability of Rodgers to actually stay healthy and look like the Aaron Rodgers we all remembered from Green Bay, which at that point, we're talking about 2-3 seasons ago at this point, at his peak when he was winning MVPs. The Saleh stuff is fantastic if we work our way down the chain. And it's not surprising. I imagine most NFL head coaches, we talked yesterday about how Sean McDermott and most NFL head coaches are probably control freaks, right? You want control. You want your fingerprints on everything. Saleh being paranoid or Saleh being aggressive with his staff or whatever, or enamored with Aaron Rodgers, like, none of that really surprises me. Like, the parts in this piece in The Athletic about Saleh were like, yeah, all right, that feels like it all checks out. It's a little extreme when Aaron Rodgers goes on the McAfee show and talks about how they need to stop with the leaks, that somebody within the organization is leaking out information that paints the Jets in a bad light, or when Robert Saleh complains internally about how the Jets get more negative press than the Giants. Now you start to get a picture of a painting of a guy who is insecure and paranoid and just maybe not suited for the role that he's in.
Or in that city, in New York City, because you're always going to have the exterior noise. So the story was, and this is actually kind of funny, you and I joked about this. Like, wait a second, there was unnamed sources that Zach Wilson, when he was told he was going to be benched for the rest of the year, and then, okay, you know what, we need you to start against Houston. I don't know. We talked about, like, wait a second. It's not a you decision. You're going back in there. You are getting paid. So he was reluctant. And it was a big topic. And then Aaron Rodgers comes in and waves his finger on a Tuesday, says, this has to stop, all this stuff. So what does Saleh do? Calls a meeting, his whole staff, and he threatens them. Well, at first he didn't. He said, all right, for the person in this room that is leaking material, you need to step forward right now. If you step forward right now, there will be no punishment. Okay. Danger, when does that ever work?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you know what? It was me. I did call
in a public setting.
Yeah, no, not going to happen. Okay. Now I'm going to take your cell phones. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
we're
Mr. Machismo.
We're all 12.
Mr. Machismo.
Yeah, we're all 12. Thanks, Dad. Here, have my cell phone. Go ahead, look at it. I think it's crazy. I think that's crazy. That is a crazy story. The Zach Wilson stuff is hilarious to me. Look, I don't like how his season ended with the concussions, and I hope he's okay. But clearly, he'll be somewhere else next year, and we'll get a fresh start. And he's probably a backup quarterback, career backup moving forward. But
the telling thing about Wilson actually doesn't put Wilson in a bad light. It begins the story of the offseason. What was the beginning of the story of the offseason? Oh, my gosh, Aaron Rodgers is a great teammate. Look at him working. Look at this. And there was the quote from Zach Wilson that said, he's the big brother I never had,
right,
and I'm taking you under the wing. Except he really wasn't taking it. Everything's fine. You're under my wing as long as I'm the starting quarterback. What happens the second that his Achilles bursts? All right, well, he has to go get that taken care of, and he was flying in every day. But the communication between Rodgers and his protege, finger quote here, was non-existent to the point where Zach Wilson doesn't even like the guy by the end of the season.
Right. And then in the middle of it all, and this all checks out, Nathaniel Hackett is a disaster. And he's back next year. Like, that's what's crazy. Like, you hear these reports, and now you've got this long track record of failure, and he's coming back. Gonna run it back with good old Nathaniel Hackett.
Multiple coaches and players describe Hackett in lacking in attention to detail. For most of the season, Hackett would meet with offensive line coach / running game coordinator Keith Carter and passing game coordinator Tom Downing during the week, but wouldn't get together with the rest of the offensive staff until the last minute of game prep. Boy, that's helpful. Like, we all know that guy in college, like, oh my gosh, I got a paper due tomorrow, and then pulls the all-nighter. That's Nathaniel Hackett. Also, there's this nugget, and I remember this game, week 2. They got destroyed by Dallas.
Yeah.
Hackett was suggested by his offensive line coach, hey, we need some help for Dwayne Brown on the left side. They never made that adjustment. Micah Parsons that day, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits.
Feasted. And they wanted to give the younger guys a chance against the Bills. We remember the game in Orchard Park. And a lot of younger guys got the start. And, of course, it was the sloppy game, but lots of penalties, undisciplined, and the Jets looked terrible against the Bills that day. And a lot of that is Nathaniel Hackett's willingness or desire to give some of the younger guys some reps, some try, and then you've got guys like Alan Lazard being critical and teammates looking at Lazard like, really, dude? Look at your stat line because we brought you here for a lot of money and you ain't producing anything.
Friend of the show, Andre Fontenette, McQuaid assistant coach, played at Syracuse. Like, he has this saying, there's certain penalties that, okay, you got beat on that play. And there's other plays that never happen. The administrative penalties, the pre-snap motion, the false starts. Who led the league in that department? It was the New York Jets. That just means you're not as prepared as you should be.
Yeah. Or you lack the discipline to do it the right way. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting piece. I thought it was a lot of fun. And, Peter, we thought of you. And cheers.
I'm raising my green water bottle to you,
cheers, Peter. You and the New York Jets. This is a great piece, and it just puts their dysfunction on full display. Maybe next time you won't have Jay Binkley call us on a Monday after the Chiefs advance to the Super Bowl. Thank you, and you're welcome. All right, we'll get to PJ Glasser. He is the host of BetQL's Send It In. We'll join. I wonder if PJ's been to Vegas.
Like, what casino would he be, or where would he be staying?
Would he stay at the Bellagio?
I think he'd be staying at the Flamingo.
Okay, well, we'll check in with PJ next and see where he prefers to stay when he's on the Strip. That's next here in the Sports Bar. You can join us at 866-4326-585, 866-4FAN.
You're listening to Rochester Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in the Flower City. The Rochester Americans hosting Syracuse. Seth Appert, head coach of the Amherst, giving his thoughts.
They're miserable, and that makes them great. And they're a hard team to play. They're big, they're heavy, their decore's massive, they're physical, they're very structured, probably the most structured team in our division in terms of defensive style of play.
It will be Devin Levi in goal tonight for the Amherst. Don Stevens will have the call beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. Seattle has hired a new head coach, Mike McDonald. The 36-year-old was the Ravens defensive coordinator. That leaves just the Washington Commanders as the only team with a head coaching vacancy. The Jets have fired assistant GM Rex Hogan. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills coming up at 4 o'clock with Sal Capaccio. Jay Battaglin, the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
All right, we're joined now, as we are every week at this time, by the host of Send It In and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, PJ Glasser, and Insider Calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. It's that time of year, PJ. I mean, the Super Bowl is here. Sorry that your Ravens didn't get in. I know that you're upset that our Bills didn't get in, but we've still got a great game to look forward to. We know how much money is going to be won and lost with all of the different sports books. We were curious, PJ, have you ever been to Las Vegas?
I have. One of my favorite cities, I would say.
Yeah, like the next time you go, and certainly we love BetMGM, what casino would you stay at?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, Mandalay is a good one. Caesar's Palace is a good one. My personal favorite, though, fellas, the Bellagio.
Oh, yeah, PJ, you going to spend some time there at the Bellagio?
I am going to watch the fountains. Oh, God, do you think I'll see Tony Romo at the Bellagio?
Well, I hear it's better than the Flamingo.
Yes.
Or the Palazzo.
Palazzo, Flamingo, good ones. Guys, I'm just going to go around Vegas, and every time I see a hotel with an O, I'm just going to text you. We'll just add to our list.
We're off to a roaring start, as always, PJ. Look, we're wondering how much you know about this, because you're not in New York State. We are. And I think New York State deprives us of a little bit of the fun that a lot of the casual bettors would have with the Super Bowl. The things that we always will end up talking about, the prop bets that'll get so many headlines, whether you're talking about the color of the Gatorade or the length of the national anthem or how many times Taylor Swift's mug will be on TV. We can't bet on that in New York State. Is that a state-by-state thing? Why is that? I mean, is that something that you know of or are you aware of? Is that going to change anytime in the future, do you think?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, guys, but I think it is a state-to-state thing. I know living in Virginia, especially in the futures markets, they don't offer like a lot of long-term futures, especially when like draft season comes around in some of these other states. So, it just depending on where you live, what state, they offer more props, especially those novelty props, just depending where you are. So, New York, obviously you still got some time until the Super Bowl, so just keep checking every day as we get closer and closer to game time. More stuff should drop, but, if you're online and, people are posting these different props that might be in Colorado or Michigan, they might only be in those states. You might not be able to get them in New York.
Yeah, PJ, it's like going into a casino and I don't want to play the slots. There's no skill to that, but I just want to have a little fun. What's wrong with that? And I wish our state would kind of come along. It hurts me when it comes to the draft, PJ, like the NFL draft. If we had it on that night, or we're not allowed to bet on an MVP. Like, why can't we I don't like Joel Embiid, so with the game limit thing there, so would there be other? Well, it's fun to talk about in theory, but we still can't do that here in New York State.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm totally with you. The draft is one of those that every time it comes around, I can't bet it. I'm always like, oh, man, I'd love to play. Because, you get so much plus money, trades happen, and you can get great odds on certain. Guys, last year, I had my buddy place a bet for me. It was 16-1 for Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and Will Anderson to go 1, 2, 3, right? Because obviously the Texans traded up, so you can get some great odds. My favorite thing that if you guys are able to bet this in New York State, that comes with the Super Bowl every year that I absolutely love, is the cross sport props, right? So on that Sunday, obviously Sunday night, it's the Super Bowl. Nothing else competes. But like earlier in that day, there might be a college basketball game, and let's just say you can bet head-to-head what's going to happen more, Travis Kelce receiving yards or Purdue points against Michigan, like those kind of things. Always love the cross-sport props and to see how these sportsbook gets creative with what they offer.
All right, PJ, so let's begin to dive into it. I mean, we're going to get final predictions and more next week when we talk, and everybody's in full Super Bowl mode, but we know the outcome of the championship games. We saw that opening line. It's moved a little bit. What's your takeaway from Niners and Chiefs here as we get ready for next week?
I mean, first gut reaction, guys. I knew the Niners would open as favorites. I was interested to see how the line would move. I mean, it's tough not to like the Chiefs. Like, how do you watch these teams, what they've done in the postseason, and not like Kansas City? Like, San Francisco shouldn't be in this game. They were fortunate to get past Green Bay. They certainly were lucky to get past Detroit. And then all the Chiefs have done is they've won outright their last two games as 3-point dogs and 4.5-point dogs, and now you're getting them as dogs again. So the contrarian in me, you guys know I love being a contrarian. When the public zigs, I love to zag the other way. And you know everybody's going to be on Kansas City in this game because it's Mahomes, because they're underdogs, because of the recency bias and how they've looked, who they've beaten, and on the flip side, how San Francisco's looked. But I like the Chiefs. I mean, for one, it's the experience, but I just think about Brock Purdy this season. The one really good defense he played was the Ravens. He had 4 interceptions in that game. Now you're giving Spags and that Chiefs defense 2 weeks to prepare. I think they're going to force him into some issues, force him into some turnovers, and you got to give him credit. He's been great in the second half, fourth quarter of these playoff games, and he's helped them win, but he's facing a different animal this week in that Chiefs secondary. So, you know, Kansas City's been really good at not giving up touchdowns to opposing running backs, and McCaffrey scores one just about every game. So how's Shanahan going to counter that? Is he going to use Debo a lot in the run game? Is there going to be a lot of short passing game to Ayuk and Kittle? I just think the matchup, for me, really favors Kansas City. So I know the line's telling you to bet San Francisco because they're daring you to take Mahomes again as a dog, but I think you got to do it, guys. I like Kansas City.
Yeah, BJ, I agree with what you are saying because I think Kansas City has drifted into New England territory, meaning, well, how could you bet against Tom Brady? And it's certainly some of those games, like there was an ugly one over the Rams at the end. And, you know, by the end of the Patriots run, like, okay, we know what their game plan is going to be almost, and that is just kind of, it's slow starts. I love that stat that New England never would score a touchdown in the first quarter, that they would just kind of slow play it. Now that we have this track record about the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, is there anything that your early trend that you can kind of spot something like that when it comes to Mahomes or Kelce or Andy Reid in this defense now that we have a nice body of work of the Chiefs in the Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, certainly, Gene. I mean, you talk about the Patriots starting slow in those playoff games. The Chiefs, they kind of finish slow, right? I mean, the second half unders, fourth quarter unders this season for Kansas City have been a goldmine. Guys, I think their fourth quarter unders this season are like 18-2. Like, that's impossible that it's that profitable. So I think because Kansas City is so good in the second half of games and they don't give up points, I think if you like San Francisco, the better plan of attack might be the first half, especially the way their 2 playoff games had started against Green Bay and against Detroit. They know they have to get off to a fast start against Kansas City. And with Shanahan's track record and those numbers of him straight up when he's trailing in the second half, trailing in the fourth quarter, like it would just be a nightmare scenario if San Francisco is trying to come from behind to win this game. So that would be my angle. If you like San Francisco, I would look to bet him first quarter. I'd look to bet him first half. And, you know, we know Mahomes is as good as anybody at coming behind in the second half, especially when he's down double digits. So that's my takeaway. That would be my trend to watch for. Obviously, the Chiefs second half, fourth quarter under. And then if you like San Francisco, to attack them early in the game.
All right, what about touchdown props? Because it feels like he's always open, and I know that's low-hanging fruit, but it's sometimes the most delicious. Is Travis Kelce going to get into the end zone on the Super Bowl?
Absolutely, especially at the price, minus 110. got to go with Kelsey. I really like Debo, guys. That would be my play. If you couldn't give me one of the top guys, if you couldn't give me CMC, Pacheco, Kelsey, if you wanted a guy with plus money, I think Debo would be my pick just because, again, the Chiefs are so good at limiting touchdowns to opposing running backs. That's my McCaffrey's minus 210 anytime touchdown. Normally we see that number minimum minus 300. And with Debo getting 2 weeks to rest that shoulder, and with Kansas City being so bad against the run, I think this game, more than others, Shanahan really looks to use Debo in the run game. So that would be my guy. I like Debo plus 175.
So, PJ, again, in New York State, we can't bet on this, but let's just say you have a friend in another state or a friend out in Vegas that could help you out. The Super Bowl MVP. Now, the NFL MVP for the season always goes to a quarterback. Last time it wasn't the quarterback, was Adrian Peterson. That's not the case with the Super Bowl MVP. You could have Julian Edelman. You could have Von Miller won it 1 year. So when we're looking at the Super Bowl MVPs, any value that you're spotting there?
I think so. And guys, for the viewers that don't know how Super Bowl MVP voting work, I think it's really important, especially for a year like this. So it's an 80-20 split, okay? 80% of the Super Bowl MVP vote is from the writers, the media members, all those kinds of people. The other 20% is the fan vote, right? Where they just vote for who they want to win Super Bowl MVP. We all know there's going to be a bunch of Swifties watching this game, right? We all know that if Kansas City wins and plays well, Kelsey probably will have a part of that. So I think more than any other Super Bowl, this could be one of the years not to take one of the quarterbacks, right? Because, you look at Mahomes' numbers this postseason, it's been 1 touchdown, 200 yards. He's not turning it over, but he's not putting up 3 or 4 touchdowns and 300 yards. And Purdy is going up against a great pass defense. So it's probably going to have to be a big CMC game or Debo or Kittle or one of these guys. So for me, it's Kelsey. It's kind of a culmination of just kind of how great he has been throughout his career in the postseason. Mahomes has already won the first 2 Super Bowl MVPs for the Chiefs. And with that 20% fan vote, I know a lot of people are going to laugh, but at the end of the day, we all know that Travis Kelce is going to dominate that fan vote. So for me, I think the value is with Kelce at 14-1. And then again, I feel like this is going to be a Debo Samuel game. So him at 35-1, and then maybe take a sprinkle with one of the defensive guys on the Chiefs, just because they've been so good on that side of the ball, and I think they can force some turnovers on Purdy. So if you want to look at a Trent McDuffie or a L'Jarius Sneed, guys like that, 200-1, 250-1, certainly think they could be worth a shot too.
PJ, less of a betting question and more of just a football question. You're there in the district around the Baltimore Ravens. McDonald goes to Seattle today, and we found out yesterday that Ben Johnson remains in Detroit. So of the 2 teams that didn't make the Super Bowl, do you feel more confident next season in the Lions being able to run it back, or do you think Baltimore can withstand the loss of their defensive coordinator and be as competitive next season as they were this?
It's a great question. I think you still have to feel better if you're a Ravens fan. Now, certainly the Lions, the NFC side, is the easier side. And really, guys, the only thing the Lions have to improve is their pass defense. I mean, we see the offense is more than good enough. Their O-line's great. They got 2 good backs. They got receiving weapons all over the field. And the big concern was Goff, but now that he's got Ben Johnson back, he's going to be really good. The Lions are great against the run. Literally all the Lions should do this offseason. Draft corners and go get corners and safeties in the free agency. That's all they should do. So I think they're certainly a threat. But, the Ravens, I think, as you guys know, when you're in professional sports, sometimes you got to learn how to lose before you can learn how to win, even though I thought the Ravens had a golden opportunity. Lamar had never been to an AFC championship game. He finally got there. And I do think that the Chiefs could be potentially down next year. I think maybe there's a chance that Kelsey retires. Now, certainly Burrow's going to be back, and Rodgers will be back, and you're going to have all these guys, and now Herbert's going to have Harbaugh. So it's tougher on the AFC side. But I would more say, even though the Ravens are losing Mike McDonald, which is a huge blow to their defense, and Ben Johnson's coming back, it's close. but I would still give the edge to the Ravens.
When did you realize, oh, this really isn't happening? Was it the Flowers fumble? Was it the Lamar pick? When did that happen, BJ?
Yeah, it was the Flowers fumble. That was the whole game plan was just, God, it was bizarre to watch. You know, when Lamar had that first touchdown, when he spun out of a tackle, incredible play. When the Chiefs scored their second touchdown, guys, when they went first 2 drives right down the field for a touchdown, I said, oh boy, we're in trouble. But just the Ravens played that entire game like they were down by 30 points, and they were never down by more than 10. It's like they didn't watch the Bills game the week before and how much success the Bills were having on the ground. So it was frustrating. The defense shut them out in the second half. They gave them a chance, and then once Flowers fumbled, that was the nail in the coffin. When stuff like that happens, you know it's just not your day.
PJ, some action in the NBA tonight. Do you have any plays that you like? We see that Jokic is going to be out against the Thunder, which is a loss for all of us. What are your takes on tonight's slate of games in the NBA?
Yeah, so now that Jokic is out, guys, I was originally on the Thunder because it was a pick'em, but now it's up to 6.5. And this is when I like betting the NBA, is when superstars are out and you kind of get value on that team who's missing their star. So I do like Denver tonight, plus the 6.5. I would look at them. I also like the Suns tonight in Brooklyn, minus 3.5. They've obviously been playing better ball. They're healthier. And, it's a KD revenge game of somewhat, right, going into Brooklyn. I think he'll have a big night. So those are the 2 plays that jumped out to me, the Nuggets plus 6.5 and Suns minus 3.5.
All right, question for both you guys as we wrap this up, because you brought up Phoenix and Brooklyn tonight. It's the first game for KD back. Are they doing a tribute video tonight?
Oh, God, can we stop?
He said KD says he doesn't want one. They actually asked him. I think they're doing one tonight, PJ.
Yeah, I think they might too. I think they might. I agree with Danger that they shouldn't. I mean, they didn't win anything under him, but I think they probably will.
It's like the social media team at the team that sends out the thank you coach tweet the day that he gets blown out, right? Like thank you coach, we appreciate you. It's like, why you're sending out a tweet saying that you just basically you're thanking him. We can see through it. Like, what are we doing? Stop wasting our time.
Exactly. Guys, real quick, too, I have a question for you. I was thinking about this when I was getting ready to come on with you. As Bills fans, people in that area, do you think they're starting to hate the Chiefs as much as they did those Brady Belichick teams in New England?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what we've been talking about all week, PJ. I mean, it's a fatigue that I think all of football felt with the Patriots, right? Like by the time Brady was, it's like, oh, God, you're just rooting against Brady, which is a shame in retrospect because he has gone down as the best ever, right? And it's gone, and now you don't have it anymore, but you have it with Mahomes, and I think Chiefs fatigue is a real thing for sure.
It's just interesting because obviously the Patriots are in your division, and the Chiefs, it just feels like you always play them in the postseason, whereas the Patriots, Bills really never matched up with them until the Mac Jones year when you guys absolutely dismantled them, but that was without Brady. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'm really starting to hate the Chiefs too, fellas. They're annoying me a little bit, a little bit.
It's the meme of the men arm wrestling there. We have something in common, PJ.
We
Raven
do.
fans, Bills fans, bonding here. PJ, you've had some good guests here on the show. Tell everybody about
was Bill Burr on with you today?
Bill Burr was on with me today. That was kind of a crazy one. So it was awesome to talk to him. That was a great interview. We were talking a little bit about the Super Bowl. He's going to be out there in Vegas. Obviously football's winding down, so we're transitioning now, to a lot of college basketball talk. Golf, obviously. They're out at Pebble Beach this week. 30-minute show. Send it in. You can watch us on Twitch, YouTube, Odyssey app. And it's just a fast-paced, rapid show. People can tune in. Fan interactions encouraged with their picks and best bets and questions. And it's a lot of fun over on the BetQL Network.
Appreciate you, PJ. Let's talk next week, and we'll dive in a little bit deeper into all the bets that we like for the Super Bowl.
Always a pleasure, guys. I'll see if I can do the phone call from the Bellagio.
You have to cross the street there if they're putting you up at the MGM. We'll look forward to
That's
it, PJ.
Right. Yep, see you guys.
Yeah, he is the host of Send It In. Odyssey Sports Betting Insider PJ Glasser and Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
If you're new to the show or maybe you missed it, just the cliff notes, that's a bit we won't let go because he's got the Baltimore accent. This is right before the Women's World Cup, and he let out a Megan Rapinoe. Oh.
And I know that it's a Van Pelt, Tim Kirkshin thing.
This is fine. We acknowledge that.
But you can't admit that. Like, I can't not laugh when I hear somebody from Baltimore drop that accent. They don't realize it, but they do it. Like when PJ first dropped that Megan Rapinoe, we're like, oh my God. And now every week we got to get one out of him. Bellagio,
Flamingo.
Gonna watch the Heat tonight. Bam Adebayo. Can't wait. PJ's great, always class. Great having him on with us here, and hopefully we get some winners on him. I kind of like his plays in the NBA tonight. I think I'll tail PJ on that. Suns.
Oh, that's ABC tonight. Phoenix and Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We get to please, that Brooklyn team that never did anything. You're going to honor that guy tonight?
Yeah, right. I should mention that this hour of the Sports Bar is brought to you by the Farmer's Dog. Fresh, human-grade dog food delivered right to your door. We're going to be joined shortly by Sal Capaccio here in the Sports Bar. Talk a little bit about, continue our conversation from yesterday, talking about that move to promote Bobby Babich from within.
Yeah, and it's not clear what's next here, which makes it an interesting story, right? Does McDermott still call the plays? Does Babich have control? And what's next year? You need a defensive line coach. You need a quarterback coach. And you've got all these offseason questions concerning the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk to Sal Capaccio, WGR, coming up here shortly.
And before we get to happy hour at 5 o'clock, we'll share some takes as well. I'll drink to that is on the way. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open for you. You can join us at 866-4326. Good Smoke Barbecue is hosting their Valentine's Day Sweetheart Deal. That's happening 11:30 to 9 Wednesday, February 14th. Valentine's Day, the Sweetheart Deal is available for dine-in and takeout. Treat that special person or persons in your life to a sweetheart of a deal that includes 3 meats, 2 sides, 2 cornbread, complimentary champagne, 2 cupcakes, all for $32.99. Reservations, if you're dining in, highly suggested at goodsmokebbq.com. You can reserve online. And the regular menu is also available. Valentine's Day falls on a Wacky Wing Wednesday this year, so buy one, get one. Dine-in wings are also available. It's Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub in East Rochester for Valentine's Day.
You're listening to the Sports Streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester. Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in the Flower City. The Rochester Americans hosting Syracuse. It'll be Devin Levi in goal tonight. Don Stevens will have the call beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. Buffalo Bills hiring Bobby Babbage as their defensive coordinator. Chris Brown today on One Bills Live addressing the question we're wondering about.
Just because he's been named defensive coordinator, I don't think unilaterally means he's going to be the defensive play caller. I think it's reasonable to assume that, but we don't have clarity on that yet, and we may not for a little bit here, maybe until Coach McDermott talks at the Combine.
We'll talk some Bills coming up next. Sal Capaccio, WGR, joining us here in the Sports Bar. Seattle has a new head coach, Mike McDonald. The 36-year-old was the Ravens defensive coordinator. That leaves just the Washington Commanders as the only team with a head coaching vacancy. The New York Jets have fired assistant GM Rex Hogan. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I'm glad you're excited about Bobby Babbage as defensive coordinator. If you're going to make me the guy, I want to call the plays.
No! Mike Danger.
Sean McDermott is a control freak. And I think everybody kind of recognizes that the Bills' defense, with Sean McDermott calling the plays, looked like a better defense with Sean McDermott having that additional level of control. To give that up, he's going to give up that element of his job and hand it over to a guy who's never done it before, feels like a bit of a reach.
Gene Battaglia.
It's not just calling the plays. That's what we as fans and the media will focus on. It's a big deal. But it's the game plan going into the week. That's kind of what Bobby Babbage should be entrusted. I want Bobby Babbage rolling his sleeves up and figuring out, all right, how do we defend here?
Bobby Babbage? That's a strong name. We can now refer to the offense and defense as Bobby Joe.
We'll see what kind of condition the Sabres are in as a team because they've been better. More consistently inconsistent.
Amerks Crunch, starting at 7 tonight.
Playing Syracuse as many times as we've had to play them over the last 3 years has made us a better team.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Happy to have you with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The free-to-download Odyssey app. Don't forget about our stream, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, and streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. Going to talk some Buffalo Bills with WGR's Sal Capaccio. You can hear Sal's part of the Bills radio network as well, roaming those sidelines. And, man, we always love getting caught up now. It's the off-season. We don't like the circumstances. We'd much rather have you on talking about the Bills making a run to the Super Bowl, Sal. But here we are talking about off-season changes. How are you, buddy?
Oops. Maybe we lost
There we go. Sal, you there? Sal, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Hi, guys.
Hey. Checking in on you, Sal. Just making sure that you're there. Okay, so the season comes to an end. We'd rather be talking to you about the Bills making a run to the Super Bowl. We're in off-season mode. Can we get your thoughts just on the end of the season here for the Buffalo Bills, how it ended against Kansas City? We haven't had a chance to speak with you since that loss.
Yeah, you got me now pretty good, right? I apologize about that, guys. My sincere apologies. I was doing 10 things at once when you got a hold of me, and I was trying to get back to you, and technology sometimes gets in the way, you know what I mean?
All good.
Anyway, so that said, yeah, listen, I mean, obviously it was a devastating loss, and, the Bills here are, a team that's had this window, and they have been able to close it out, and here come the big bad Chiefs again. It was set up perfectly for them, and they didn't do it, and they didn't get it done, and you wonder if you couldn't do it this year, are you ever going to be able to do it, right? That's the thought. But my other thought is they have Josh Allen, and they have a really strong organization. And, as much as it sucks, and we're here wondering again, they're going to give another run next year. And this team is still set up to be very good going forward. I never bought into last year, the window closing. Yes, the window in this particular group of players is going to be different in closing, and you're going to have new players. But as long as you have 17, and as long as to me you have a strong organization and leadership like they do, they'll be back. But certainly it was tough. And I know that last week watching the championship games and seeing Baltimore, I think the Bills gave the Chiefs even a better game. I think the Bills could have gone to Baltimore and won.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs have morphed over into New England territory like, oh gosh, can we just get anybody but, which maybe is not fair, but this is kind of our lot in life. Sal Capaccio, our guest here. Sal, if we can get your take here on the news here in the last 24 hours of the Bills moving to promote Bobby Babich. What kind of guy is Bobby Babich? We hear some positive things, but I feel like he's somebody that we don't know enough about. He came in day one from Sean McDermott, so I'm sure you've been around Bobby Babich a little bit here in the last few years.
Been around him a lot. I've gotten to know Bobby pretty well, and he is he's a guy that you don't hear a lot from him in the media because he's been a position coach. You don't hear a lot from position coaches, but last year, because the Bills had Sean McDermott running the defense, he would have different defensive coaches kind of meet with the media during camp, and Bobby was one of them. He was great, when he went in front of the whole media, but I've gotten a chance to get to know him a little bit. I know his players really, really respect him and know how smart, he is and how good of a coach he is. Now, let's just think about what he's been able to do. Think about this resume, right? This is a young man who, and he is still young, he's 40 years old, but he's a young man who, when he took over, in safeties in 2017, he coached them for a few years. That's Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And a few years later, the Bills had only 2 All-Pros in the whole team. Both guys he coached, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And then his dad, Bob Babich Sr., retires from coaching linebackers. He moves to linebackers. And the first year, Matt Milano becomes an All-Pro. And his second year, Tremaine Edmonds has his best season as a pro and gets paid in free agency. And then last year we saw what Terrell Bernard did. So I think that you can easily see that the resume is there. And the other part about it is, the bloodlines and how much of a lifer in football he is. And, his dad, Bob Babich, I don't know if people realize, but Bob Babich Sr. was the defensive coordinator for the Bears when they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Colts.
Yep.
And he was so respected in NFL circles by his players. Bob Babich Sr. actually introduced Brian Urlacher to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Urlacher asked him to do that. He was his position coach. That's the kind of football family and football person you're getting of how respected they are by the people they've coached.
So I thought it was all fascinating how it went down. Speaking of the Bears, the Bills lose Eric Washington to the Bears to be their new defensive coordinator, and he's coming in with a lot of fanfare into Chicago. But we had heard that Babich was interviewing for a couple of open positions to be a defensive coordinator. I mean, is this a matter of one or the other has? We can only keep one of these two guys. Was one considered more valuable than the other? Were you not able to retain both or find a way to keep both of them happy, or is it just a matter of Washington got the DC gig, Babich was somebody that was indispensable and you wanted to hold on to for the future?
Well, I think there's a lot of scenarios here that you could play out and think. But I think at the end of the day, you think about these two gentlemen and their careers and what they might want out of their careers. And I think too much is always put on what, the Bills can do and keeping them. It's not, it's their decision too, right? And, Eric Washington was a defensive coordinator in Carolina before he came to Buffalo. And he's worked closely with Sean McDermott. Heck, he was named his assistant head coach. So, they have I'm sure, a very strong relationship. But I would be willing to bet that Eric Washington wants to be a head coach someday. He gets an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator. And even though he's not going to be calling plays, some people say, well, that's a lateral move. No, it's not. It's a coordinator. You go from position coach to coordinator in this league, that's a promotion. And if you want to be a head coach, you have to make that jump. You have to make that step. Now, the question is the right one that you raise, which is, well, what if they made him the Bills' defensive coordinator? I'm sure that in the building, there was a thought that they'd like to keep Bobby Babich, and he's on a career, trajectory and arc that he also deserves a defensive coordinator. And you can only have one of those guys. So yeah, people have to make their own decisions. Now, as far as Babich and, retaining him over going to the 3 places he had interviews with, Miami, New York Giants, Green Bay Packers. Look, I would say, of course, you want to keep him in your building. There's no doubt. I would also say you're not going to make a decision just to keep him away. If he's only going to get this job if he deserves it and he's earned it. They're not going to make the decision just to say, well, don't go there. We'll give you a defensive coordinator job. He's got to be a guy that they trust and they believe in, and I think that is all very true. I have no idea, and maybe we'll find out down the road, if Bobby Babich had an opportunity to actually go to one of those places, they're going to offer him the job. But those teams also interviewed like 6-7 guys each, so there's no slam dunk he was even going to get offered one of those jobs. But it does all work out, and then you wish Eric Washington well, and I'm sure he has an opportunity here to kind of establish himself as a coordinator again, and then Bobby Babich gets his first opportunity to do so.
So, Sal, we don't know as far as who's going to be calling plays. We'll learn this at some point. But I'll ask you the question this way, because we've been talking a little bit about coaching trees, and the news being, well, Belichick and Reid. And Reid has a really good coaching tree, and Belichick not so much. Sean McDermott's coaching tree, how much do you think that matters to him? Because he's got Dable out there, and I would think that if we're trying to decipher, is he going to turn the keys over to Bobby Babich here and really make him this defense? Well, that would be a really nice branch someday, and if you want to have the best staffs, you want to move these guys up the ladder.
Do you guys consider Brian Dable from the Sean McDermott tree? I kind of consider him from the Bill Belichick tree, but you tell me. I don't know.
It's a debate. Yeah, that's fair.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, right? These guys, they move around so much now. Who's on whose tree? I definitely think Babich would be. Babich has come up. Now, Babich was in Cleveland on the Browns staff. He was also with Sean McDermott in Carolina for a little while, but now he's, Sean McDermott's defensive coordinator and kind of groomed him through position to bring him up. And I don't think it matters that, Sean McDermott, his tree. What I think matters to Sean McDermott, it has someone who knows his defense and can, make sure that he understands everything they want to get accomplished. Let's be honest. This is still going to be Sean McDermott's defense, whether or not he's calling plays. And that is the question we don't know yet. Who's calling plays on game day? Is it Bobby Babich? Is it Sean McDermott? We don't know that. I've inquired, have not been able to get an answer from anybody. I don't know if we will anytime soon. Maybe we will at the Combine coming up at the end of February. Maybe we don't for a while. And in fact, guys, if you remember last year, Sean McDermott said during OTAs and training camp, I believe it was, when he said he was going to be defensive coordinator, he said, look, if I can't handle it, I'll give it to somebody else. Like, we have to see. We have to go through this process. I wouldn't be totally shocked if it's something like that again, which is, hey, you know what? Right now, it's going to be me. We haven't made the total determination. We're going to see how Bobby, feels about handling everything, and then eventually maybe he gets the play calling duties turned over to him. So I'm not really sure how all of this is going to play out, but I would say that, either way, the philosophy of the defense will remain what Sean McDermott and what's in his mold.
What do you think, or how do you think the Bills performed with Sean McDermott calling plays versus how it looked previous with Leslie Frazier still in the fold? Because I think my eyes tell me that the defense played a little bit more aggressively, which we kind of thought would happen with Sean McDermott, but we also saw a couple of untimely cover zeros that resulted in big plays that hurt them late in games. What was your evaluation of Sean McDermott year one calling plays in this Bills defense?
Well, those things are tied together. I mean, he was more aggressive, and he at times lived by the sword and died by the sword. And, Sean said at the end of that Denver game, well, hey, I was aggressive and I wanted to force a play. And look, we can all debate that, whether he should or shouldn't, but it's just like the thing with Dan Campbell last week, right? Dan Campbell, he's so aggressive, go for it. And then when he does something like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, that's who he is. That's how he's gotten here to where he is. So, yeah, I mean, I think they were more aggressive, but I think more than anything, guys, whether it was calling plays, I think Sean McDermott just did one heck of a job with this defense considering the injuries. I mean, you think about where they were after week 4 and 5 with losing Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano and Daquan Jones, and to still finish in the top, 3-4 in the league and, points allowed, 5th, whatever it was, on defense, I think it's pretty remarkable. So, yeah, I think he was more aggressive. I think, look at the sack totals. The Bills are one of the best teams at getting to the quarterback in the NFL, and that's without Von Miller having any impact whatsoever. So I think that speaks to what he was able to do. So, yeah, I think he did a good job calling plays, and I'm interested to see. And I think Bobby Babich is, one heck of a young, good, smart coach. But it is, something to ask a first-time coordinator. If you're going to ask him to do it, and if he's going to be the play caller, there's no slam dunk he's going to be great at it, especially with a ready-made defense in a Super Bowl window, right? You're not resetting the organization. They're not rebuilding here. You'd be asking somebody for the first time in his career to come in and call defense on a team that's ready to compete for a Super Bowl. And I think that's a pretty large task, and we'd have to see if he's up to that.
Yeah, well, Sal, this leads into kind of the off-season portion of the conversation. And listen, we listened to Jeremy. He's leading the choo-choo there for the wide receiver. But I just point out, there's going to be some needs here. Maybe when we learn more when we come out of free agency, 1, maybe 2 safeties. You brought up Daquan Jones, and you have A.J. Epineza. You have Floyd as a free agent. You don't know what you're going to get out of Von Miller. So how would you prioritize everything? At least we'll start with the defense here. It's got to be the defensive line. Would it surprise you if the Bills went defensive line in round 1 over wide receiver?
No, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think that they are fully on board with adding wide receiver and adding playmakers. I mean, they basically told us that at the end of the season press conference. The words used were, explosive plays. And then Sean McDermott talked about having that in mind when it comes to player acquisition. Now, let's remember there are three ways to acquire players in the NFL, right? That's through the draft, it's through free agency, and it's through trades. Free agency is going to be tough. You don't have a lot of money. Trading is going to be tough because you don't have a lot of money. You get the contract. But the Bills do have some ammo to trade with. They're going to have 10 draft picks. So, maybe they go down that road. They find something that kind of fits into what they're trying to do. But I think the draft is where you kind of have to focus and put that. I think that they are probably – this is a deep wide receiver draft. The reason why it wouldn't surprise me, maybe you get a couple of wide receivers in second round, third round, fourth round, somewhere in there because this is a good deep wide receiver draft. They do need to replenish defensive tackle. But, guys, I wouldn't push the panic button on that yet with anything because let's remember, this is a group, this is a position group that they've kind of turned over a lot over the last few years because there's always guys out there on minimum deals, on one-year deals. And I'll give you an example. Like and let's just take both D end and D tackle, right? I always think of like Shaq Lawson and Jordan Phillips kind of the same for something like this, which is you can just re-sign those guys for probably one-year deals. They come back. Or you can let them go and then get, who you're going to replace them with? Guys you signed who were just like them on one-year deals. Yeah. That's what you're looking at. Yeah. So as much it would be great to get Daquan Jones back. That's going to be the tell. If Daquan Jones goes somewhere else as a free agent, you really do have more of a void there. If he doesn't, you're set with your starting two defensive tackles. You're really drafting for rotation and depth. And at that point, I don't really know if you're going to spend a first-round pick on it.
What about safety? We heard an emotional Micah Hyde at the end of the season. He's taking his time and is going to try and figure out what to do. Jordan Poyer, another year older. What do you think the Bills do there? And Taylor Rapp, who started to come on there towards the end of the season, free agent as well. So what's the plan for Buffalo in the secondary?
Well, they have only two safeties under contract, and that is Jordan Poyer and Damar Hamlin. But they're both on totally opposite sides of the spectrum here, which is, number one, Jordan Poyer at his age and the money you can save. At this point, I'd be kind of surprised if he's back in Buffalo. But you never know. I thought that last year. I thought he was going to go somewhere, and they brought him back, and they may want him and have his leadership and all that, and that would be fine. Micah Hyde, you just said it. He's going to take time to evaluate what he wants. But, guys, even if Micah Hyde wants to continue playing, I'm not sure that's going to be in Buffalo. Coming off the injury he's had, the neck injury, the neck surgery last couple of years, his age, I'm not sure. You heard Brandon Beane say they've got to get younger at some positions. I think that's right there at safety. That's probably what you're looking at. Taylor Rapp is going to be a free agent, but to me, you can go to Taylor Rapp. If you're going to move on from Hyde and Poyer, which I think they could do both of them, Taylor Rapp's going to be the starting safety. You can offer him a starting safety job. Now, he may want money to, be in line with that, which might make it more difficult. I think Cam Lewis is a guy that, you don't want to lose. He's very versatile. He can really help you. He might have to be a starting safety next year. And I'm actually okay with that. I think that Cam Lewis, can be a starting safety. Right now, though, he's so versatile. That's his best role, is to be a guy who's a backup nickel, a backup safety to come in on dime packages. So they do have to do some stuff there. And I don't want to forget about DeMar, but to me, last year he was a roster bubble player. And he's a good depth piece, and he's on a rookie contract. And, you keep him around as a depth piece, and, he can help you in a pinch, but I don't think there's any certainty he even makes the roster. And I don't think that that's a guy that you'd be counting on to start.
Sal Capaccio, Extra Point Show on WGR. You also hear him on the sidelines during the Buffalo Bills season, our guest here in the sports bar. Sal, as far as getting cap compliant, you brought up some of these moves, and I'm just wondering, all right, is that the last we've seen of Tre'Davious White in Buffalo? Other moves that could be made? Do we just kind of expect a lot of restructures here for the Buffalo Bills? Would that be enough, or are there going to be some painful decisions ahead, do you think?
Well, there will be some painful decisions, but there will also be restructures. And, there are some candidates here. I think that you can make a few moves. Obviously, they can restructure Josh Allen. They did it last year. They can do it again. They can save a bunch of money there. You are kicking money down the road anytime you do it, and especially with a guy like Allen and his big number. But that's kind of what you do. Brandon Beane doesn't love doing it. He's said that. He doesn't, love to kick everything down the road. But, you want to try and keep these core pieces together as much as you can. So they can do that. They can try to restructure Stephon Diggs a little bit. We'll see where that goes if they want to do that. I think that there are some candidates for extension that can really help you. I think Deion Dawkins. Deion Dawkins is going to the last year of his contract, and he maybe had his best season. But he's, you can restructure his contract. You can give him an extension, I should say, and add years but lower his cap money.
Okay.
I think we lost Sal.
I think so.
Still on the line there or no? Nope. All right. Look, we'll try and get Sal back on here, I guess. Great conversation with Sal, and he was right in the middle of telling us how the Bills can get out of that cap turmoil that they're in here heading into the offseason. Once they learn what that cap is, I'm sure they could start to make some moves. And always appreciate Sal joining us here on the Fan Rochester. Is that Sal dialing back in there? Let's see. Hey, Sal, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. You guys, we got me back on. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of issues here. Gremlins attacking us.
No problem.
Deion Dawkins. That's when
Deion Dawkins. Yeah. He's got 1 year left in his deal. You can add years onto his deal, and you can kind of lower his cap number this year. That would be one. Rasul Douglas is another one. Rasul Douglas is actually older than Tre'Davious White, but he's not coming off the injury. He obviously was a really, really big, important player for you. You can extend his contract. You can lower his cap number this year. Those are things. I am not one to get into the Tre'Davious White, they're going to move on from him. Now, anything's possible, of course, right? But, guys, I just think that this is a guy that he's a cornerstone of this franchise. They know how hard he works. I think Tre'Davious White has much better chance to come back from this injury than most people would, considering how hard he works, what he means to the organization. You might have to do a little restructuring there, but I just don't think that they're of the mindset to do that. And in fact, that last year before the injury, coming back from the ACL even, he was shadowing number one receivers around the field. And, the Bills, if you do that, where are you leaving yourself at corner anyway? I mean, you might have to now think about replenishing that position early in the draft. You already have him under contract. If you move on from him, you're costing yourself money on the cap. With dead cap, you're going to eat. You'll save some, but do you really want to eat $10 million for him not being on your team? I mean, I just don't think that's something to have an appetite for at this time. So I do think there's got to be some restructures. There's going to be probably some extensions. But, yeah, there's going to be some guys, maybe like a Jordan Poyer. Nyheim Hines is still on the books. What do they do with him? That could be saving money there. There are guys around the roster you can save some money with if you move on. And then, of course, you have the free agents that how are you going to bring them back? Are they really going to be able to bring Gabe Davis back even if they want? I'm not really sure. I don't think they can do that. Probably considering the money he might get from another team on the open market. A.J. Epinesa, an ascending player. After 4 years, I would think that there's a couple of teams out there that it only takes one to say, hey, we really like this guy. I mean, those to me are even painful decisions as well that you can't bring them back.
Sal, got to bring up Diggs. Got to bring up Diggs because, and not to create drama and not to start any sort of speculation. We all saw the production decline, and it's been well documented. We also know that there's a pretty big number attached to him here for the next couple of seasons. What do you do if you're Brandon Beane? And we hear Brandon Beane say Steph Diggs is a number one wide receiver. Is he pumping the tires, or is he still truly a number one wide receiver?
I kind of believe what he said, I believe that he believes what he said, if that makes sense, right? I think that, with him saying we believe he's number one receiver. And I think the way I look at it is I believe the other part of it too, which is we got to give him help. We got to make sure that, he's not the focus of all these teams when they go and play the Buffalo Bills, basically. He does have a big number. I agree. It's $18.5 million, in base salary. That's a $27 million, almost $28 million cap number next year. That's huge. I don't know if you can really live with that, but here's the problem, guys. You can't cut them. I mean, then you're even eating even more than the cap hit is, which you can't do. Now, if you cut them post June 1, now you can save money. You can save $19 million, but you know what the problem is? You're going to eat $9 million this year and $22 the following year in dead cap space. You can't do that either. So you can look at, if you really wanted to, you could look at restructuring his deal and then trading him, or just simply restructuring his deal, see if you'll take a pay cut, kicking some money down the road, or just live with it. And you go and you live with it, and you hope that he bounces back and has production, and then you didn't have to use any of that money for the following years, basically.
The options for Von Miller limited to live with it, right, Sal? Yeah. I mean, is there any hope in those last two games? I mean, you talk to people, the injury is always a tough one to come back for, and we've kind of talked about how Von Miller wasn't really available, but if you get that sort of productive in camp early on, could we imagine a training camp where the Bills have to make that painful decision, or you're just kind of stuck with it, with that cap figure being what it is?
Yeah, there's almost no way you can just release Von Miller. Even post June 1. Now, the only thing that could happen, and you obviously hope that the allegations against him aren't true or right or whatever, because those are very serious allegations. But if something were to happen on that front, there are some, legal ramifications and contract ramifications. But let's just say that, they're going to keep going forward here. And from a football standpoint only, guys, you just can't move on from him. I mean, even if you do a post-June 1 cut, you're still going to eat over $17 million in cap space. I mean, that's just something you can't do. You'd rather have Von Miller on your team for the money than off your team for $17 million that he's costing you, and even though you're gonna save about $6 to $7 million, right? So, I mean, that's where you have to weigh a lot of those decisions. So, I just think that Von Miller's going to be a Buffalo Bill in 2024, unless Von Miller decides he's not going to be a Buffalo Bill, or like I said, if something happens with the legal process which doesn't allow that to happen. And that's obviously something that we'll keep on top of with any news that comes down over the next several months.
Sal, I don't want to, spoil the podcast, but we know you and Beauvais, and it's always game day in Buffalo, not only talk about the off season, but very important content. You did a monthly power ranking, the months ranked. Can I get, I don't know, I don't want to spoil it, but can we get a little bit of the logic behind your power rankings for the months on the calendar?
And I didn't do all 12. I actually only did my top 3 and bottom 3. And I don't know. It was very hard. But I will tell you guys, the worst month is February, which starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's cold. It's dreary. You got the brown snow and the black snow. Now, look, we actually have some decent weather starting February this year. But, it's, football season's over. The Bills are done. The Sabres aren't good right now. So for the last 10, 11 years, it's been the case, right? They haven't been good. What am I doing? Syracuse basketball isn't really, last night was a horrible loss, right? So February to me. The one that people really, I got some feedback, like, how could you say that? I had November ranked as not one of my favorite months. And it was only because November's it's getting colder. You could have a 60-degree day and then a 20-degree day, right? And then college football's starting to wind down. You get towards Thanksgiving, you're like, yeah, there's not much college football left. They're pretty much at the end of the season. That gets me sad every year. The calendars, I love Thanksgiving, but the calendar's all screwed up. We're doing different things on different days at different times, all this kind of stuff. So, that's part of it. And then my best month, September, man. We're starting football season, right? It's great weather still outside. It's the return of everything, we love about football and sports. And you got baseball still going on, the stretch run, which is really cool. And I love July and August as well. You got warm weather, training camp, golf. We're out there and enjoying baseball, those kinds of things. So yeah, that's where I leaned.
Sal, just my advice to you, what I tell Danger here, we have to be mentally tough here.
But Sal's a Florida guy. Sal gets it. Like I'm like
for
you.
29 days. That's all though.
Yeah, it's a short month, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not looking forward to that first week in April when I can actually see the sun. I know we'll see the sun before the first week of April, but God, give me that vitamin D. Get my toes in the sand, Sal. I can't wait.
Oh man, I'm right with you there. The problem is, every year I think the same way. That's mentally, that's right. That's what I look forward to. Every year mentally I look forward to March and I'm like, all right, we're out of it. But we're really not, right? That's what gets me, because in the back of my head I'm like, come on, it's March. We are going to get snowstorms at some point. It's going to snow in March at some point. It's going to probably snow in April. That just happens every year. In fact, I think our buddy Patrick Hammer over here said to me last year, I think this is right, that we have had at least a trace of snow in April, every year for the last, whatever decades.
Dude, we had a frost warning for the PGA Championship. It was mortified.
Yeah,
mortified.
Exactly.
I want another one of those, whether it's the PGA or we might be in line for an U.S. Open, but my gosh, yes, it'll happen in May too. Sal, what do you got coming up on the show tomorrow? Other content that people can kind of check out here?
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to really start diving deep into the Bills, off season here. I got my free agency tracker scheduled for next week to kind of show up on the website, WGR550.com. You guys will share that as well. And, we can keep track of all the different things that are happening in the off season with player movement, draft picks coming up, all that kind of stuff. Friday, so everybody knows, we're going to talk with new University at Buffalo head coach, Coach Lembo. And, really excited to see what he has in store for UB football. And of course, Coach Mo went to Alabama. He's now an assistant there. But Coach Lembo is going to join us on Friday on the Extra Point Show. And you know what? Later in the month, I'll be headed to the Combine at the end of February. Got the owners' meetings in March. The NFL calendar never stops, so feel free to reach out and we'll continue talking about this stuff.
Can't wait, and appreciate the time today, Sal. Even despite all the technical issues, we got through it. We powered through it, and we're better for it, man. Well, we are better for it.
All right, you got it.
You got it, Sal. There he is, Sal Capaccio, the Extra Point Show on WGR, Odyssey Sports sister station, and, of course, the Buffalo Bills radio network as well.
Now I'm intrigued. first round pick for me in the month draft. I think I'm going June. June in Rochester. It doesn't get any better than that.
That's your number one?
That's my number one.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Sal. I think I go September. I do love me some September. It's just, you get to Labor Day and summer's over and it's a little bit bittersweet, but you have the anticipation of everything. And as you get towards the end of September, even more, September, October,
really good.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, October, you've got action in all four major sports. And it's like, give me more of that. I love it. Love me some September and October. And my third, am I going June?
I think you're going June.
I think I'm agreeing with you. I think I'm going June.
Yeah, because June, and then you launch into a 4th of July weekend, and nobody's really doing anything there. You got Father's Day.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I don't like Sal's take on November. November gets high marks for me. And it goes beyond Thanksgiving. I think there's still a lot of great action in the month of November.
It is the slowest time, though, right? Like we're entering right now. It's like, especially with the Sabres going, We even talked about Syracuse last night. You lost.
Can't lose to BC.
Boston College.
Can't lose to BC. Just terrible. Just terrible. But there's still a lot of ball left to be played. We'll keep tabs on how the Orange progress here through the month of February. Let's get to some takes next in the sports bar. We've got a coaching change in the NFL, as well as Baltimore's going to be looking for a defensive coordinator, and Seattle has their guy.
Speaking of Baltimore, wow, Oriole fans, wow, you got rid of the Angelos family? Looks all good now. However, well, it can't be bad, but I don't think this means that you're going to be having trophies instantly, though. And also, got corrected on one thing yesterday, like when I went down to Cuca, and I just, need to kind of clarify this. My take here on college sports in Rochester.
All right, we'll get to some takes on tap next in the sports bar. You can join us at 866-4FAN, the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950.
In the Flower City, the Amerks hosting Syracuse. Here's head coach Seth Appert on the opponent.
They're miserable, and that makes them great. And they're a hard team to play. They're big, they're heavy, their decore's massive, they're physical, they're very structured, probably the most structured team in our division in terms of defensive style of play.
It'll be Devin Levi in goal tonight for the Amerks. Don Stevens will have your call beginning at 7 tonight here on the Sports Leader. Seattle, the Seahawks, they've got a new head coach. Mike McDonald is his name. He was with Baltimore as their defensive coordinator. He's now the youngest coach in the league at age 36. That leaves just the Washington Commanders as the only team with a head coaching vacancy. The New York Jets today firing assistant GM Rex Hogan. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Oh yeah, for sure. We are both excited with the OT, so I can't wait to be there. It's kind of crazy because we spend a lot of time together and we just motivate each other, and I think that's great to have some guy who's on the side of your back. So
yeah, Yuri Kulik, Isaac Rosane, going to represent the Amerks at the AHL All-Star Game. Talking about that, that's Kulik right there. And we were talking yesterday, Gino, with Seth Appert about what we can maybe expect in terms of a call-up, or will the Sabres decide that they want to replace Quinn on that line with somebody that's young like a Kulik or a Rosane, or if they look for a bottom six guy, what does that look like? But inevitably, you're going to see somebody get called up from the Amerks to help, shoulder that loss there of Jack Quinn.
Well, and I'm looking ahead here because let's just kind of say the Sabres putter along. Well, they should sell, right? Like Middlestat, you see his name. Well, if that happens, and this is a topic that has been kind of yearly, does that create the vacuum going up here to Buffalo? Because you want everybody kind of hanging out here, and you don't want to be in the 4 or 5 seed. You want a top 3 seed in that division. So, yeah, I'm excited about the Amerks playoff push, but what happens with the parent, you just kind of never know here. So, Amerks tonight, Syracuse. I'm hoping there's a good crowd. I know in our town, when school is in, a little tough on a weeknight at some point, but it is Devin Levi. Yeah. It is Syracuse. And also the Amerks aren't home this weekend. They're up in Laval. So, I mean, go on out tonight. Don't have any plans. Go check it out.
Absolutely. All right, let's get some takes here. We got some news out of Baltimore.
Yeah, the Orioles have new owners. And, the Angelos family. Do you remember that story of the broadcaster last year? They didn't really say anything, but he wasn't so pom-pommy. They suspended him.
Well, no, he was pointing out facts.
Yeah.
Suspended for pointing out facts about the baseball team.
Yeah, you're suspended. Well, don't have to worry about that anymore. Oriole fans, your nightmare is over. The Angelos family is selling $1.7 billion to private equity partners, the point person being a guy named David Rubenstein. He was running the Kennedy Center, just stepped down, fancies himself as a philanthropist, but now we're getting more details who is in this ownership group, Danger. According to Craig Hoffman, our buddy down in D.C., you got Cal Ripken.
Okay.
You've got former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
No kidding.
Well, he's a Hopkins grad. That's where he's from. Did not know that. Michelle Kang, who is also the owner of the Washington Spirit, and Grant Hill. What's the connection with Grant Hill? I don't know.
Is he from the area? Or
Maybe.
Is he just...
I don't know. Well, this is all good news for Oriole fans, but let me just caution you. The rich dude who rescues your woe-begone team, it doesn't automatically mean success. And this is coming from somebody who wants to see the Sabres do well. And Terry Pagula spent a lot of money, hasn't gotten it right. And Steve Cohen with the Mets.
I'm sorry, can you say that second name? I just missed
Steve
it.
Cohen with the Mets. Who can't even get Justin Turner. Trying to bring back Justin Turner, no, I'm going to Toronto, guys. At least we got Adam Ottavino.
Say it in a Baltimore accent.
Adam Ottavino. Can't do it as well.
I get it. I don't think it automatically means that you're going to be a better organization all of a sudden, because we've seen time and time again that it doesn't necessarily change the fortunes. I think the O's are set up, man. They're set up for. I mean, based on what we saw last year, don't you get the sense that they're set up for a nice run here for the next few years?
You would think, but remember what they added last year at the trade deadline? Nothing. Like one arm, they did squadoosh. You got to do Cincinnati, same thing. You got to do something for your fan base. I'm
excited because I hope that with new ownership, they've lightened the load and loosened the leash a little bit on our buddy Nate Rowan, who's down there in Baltimore. Maybe we can get Nate on with us on occasion just to give us a state of his life and where he is now in the bigs. Former Red Wings PR guy.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea because when he got the job down there, and I'm not telling tales out of school, like, hey, can you come on? No, can't do it, guys. I'm not allowed to. Really? And maybe that doesn't change, but
yeah. But if they lighten up a little bit, loosen the restraints, have Nate share some stories of his time in the bigs, I think it'd be fun. Maybe that happens now. Maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, if you were an Orioles fan for all those years that you were complaining about ownership, well, be careful what you wish for. Maybe it doesn't work out in your favor. Let's see.
Well, the good news is if Cal Ripken's kind of involved and you have guys that are putting their name on it.
Yeah, but you say involved. Like, how involved? Like, is Cal Ripken rolling up his sleeves, going in every day as a part owner of the Orioles and offering his input and his insight? And what is that worth in today's day and age? How detached has he become from the game? Is he looking at numbers? Is he looking at analytics? Is he watching scouting? Is he watching tape?
He's still, when it comes to the organization, ownership or not, he's kind of still, I would argue, the face of the organization.
No question.
All time. So
that's fine.
If the way things are run, you can't go cheap with Cal Ripken. I would put it that way. Former player, I don't think would be all in favor of running this the Cincinnati Reds. We're just going to do things bare bone.
It's his money now, right? He's invested now. Maybe he sees things differently. Not a player anymore, now an owner. This is his money that he's invested into it.
Well, and the easy thing to point to is, and it not exactly apples to apples, but when Derek Jeter went down to Miami, and yeah, they didn't work out at all. That didn't work out at all, and they were cheap, and Jeter ended out. And, of course, Jeter had no connection to the Marlins whatsoever. That's why the comparison isn't right. But sometimes when guys, and I don't have any indication that Ripken's going to take a position like that or not.
What came out of your trip to Keuka yesterday?
Well, first of all, the lovely beach, down there. One of the biggest disparities you can imagine. Like, hey, here's $1 million home. Hey, here's poverty.
I will be the first to admit, when you dropped the beach at Keuka on me on Monday, when you said
had no idea.
I had no idea, one, and two, I didn't even put two and two together that there would be a beach on the Finger Lake, on Keuka Lake. I thought of the movie Real Genius, where, because it's a college campus, I thought, oh, what did they do? Create a beach somewhere on campus where the smart people got together and said, hey, we can have a beach year round, and we can do it in a field house or in an auditorium, just like they did in the movie Real Genius, where they have beauticians, showing up to their big college party. Smart people putting together, doing smart things and creating things that you wouldn't imagine possible on a college campus. But it is an actual beach on the lake.
Actual beach on the lake. And shout out to Jimmy. He is a sports bar listener. Okay, he works in the Keuka athletics department. And look, that commute, you would think, oh, that's a crazy commute. I'm like, well, he lives in Victor and drives to Penn Yan every day. It's only 45 minutes.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. I mean, as compared to major metros. Jimmy brought this up. He said, hey, look, I heard it earlier this, and I know he's a regular because he said, I heard something you said earlier this month, and he corrected me on this.
Now, this is what I love about Jimmy and those like Jimmy, because a lot of people will listen, but they'll only half listen. So they'll hear you say something, or me, they'll hear us say something, and they'll hear what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear, and then they'll throw it back in our face. And it's like, no. You're not listening to what we're saying. You're missing the point of what we're saying. You're taking what we said, because you're half listening, out of context and throwing it back in our face. Don't do that. I mean, look, if you're listening, go all in, man.
Yeah.
Listen.
Well, he's not doing that.
No, I know. That's why I love him.
There was a point that and I'm trying to remember how this came up. I think it was about Lemoyne College. Some reason Lemoyne was in our shot segment, and I was like, what is stupid Lemoyne going Division I across the board for? Why? Why bother with that? And I bring it back home. If this little tiny school in Syracuse can do it, why can't we do it here in Rochester? And I made the suggestion of elevating a team for lacrosse like Hobart did, like RIT did with hockey. Could Fisher or someone else please make that move and give us something nice? And what I missed was this, and this is what I got corrected at. Somewhere over the pandemic, the NCAA killed that rule. The rule that, gave RIT a Division I hockey team, that you could pick one team to elevate to Division I. Now the rule is, hey, it's all or nothing, guys. You either have to go Division I or you don't go Division I. You can't live in between. So that hurts, I guess, but I'm still not going to give up on this, Danger. If you want to go D1, okay, great. We deserve this in our town. First step, okay, for one of our schools, we're going to do this. We need a donor. And believe me, there are plenty of people with money in our town. For example, and here's today's Did You Know stat here in the sports bar. The guy who founded Dick's Sporting Goods, Ed Stack. Ed Stack, native Rochesterian, Fisher grad. Come on, Ed. Ed, let's do this. Some RIT donor, let's do this. I'm happy to have this conversation with anyone offline will listen, because the school that does this will own this town.
Gene, you got to start pressing the flesh with some billionaires. Let's go. Let's get in the room. Let's get you in a room with some guys that have wealth that we can't imagine.
Everybody would point to Golisano, but he's not going down that road.
No, I like where your head is at, and you're right. It would be awesome to have a Division I school in our community. I guess RIT makes the most sense, right?
RIT has the endowment. They are the 10th largest private school in America.
Okay.
They have challenges like everybody else, but we've talked about this. We reported on this. Like when their old AD, former AD, I should say, that being Lou Spiotti, he was talking about bringing back football. And then the pandemic hit, and that was it. So
I feel like all of these schools, and this isn't exclusive to Rochester, this is just universities in general, man, they make so much money that if they really, really wanted it, they could do it without the help of...
They don't think like you and I and business people. It's no offense to anybody in academia, but you're on a different clock. Decisions don't get made quickly. They're very slow. And let's form a committee and do it. Like, there is a lag when it comes to making decisions like this, where we see the opportunity. We see the investment. If we just did this privately, heck yeah, you're making money. You have a Division I team.
And that's the only way they're going to do it. The only way that they would do it, because let's call it for what it is. They are businesses, and this would be another line to add to your bottom line. Like, you would have to eventually would make your money back, you would think, but it is an investment that you would have to make in these programs that would come at the expense of some other things at the school, unless, like we were talking about earlier with New York State and all the found money in sports wagering, you can make a little play there to the Pagulas and be like, hey, here's some millions and millions of dollars for a stadium.
I'm glad you brought up Pagulas, because that guy did something for his alma mater. Penn State, they're Division I. What is it? They didn't have hockey.
Yeah.
And you need an arena. He built them one of the best arenas.
Yep.
$88 million. Never made it. I hear these rave reviews down there. And now Penn State men's and women's hockey, they are national contenders, and he gave something back to his school in that form.
All right, so let's get Gino in a room with some billionaires. We need to hang out with more rich people.
Gene.Battaglia@odyssey.com. And you could just give me an anonymous tip, okay? Because I'm sure there's somebody with money that has thought about this, or maybe you've been rebuffed. I've heard stories like this. I'm not going to mention which school. Yeah, no, we're not going to.
They just don't have an interest in it.
No.
Meryl Streep is running things at the school, like sports.
Football.
Football.
Not the arts.
No. We're crawling with outsiders. All right, we got to get to happy hour next in the sports.
Thank you for letting me rant.
No, I think
and thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for fully listening, not half listening. The half listeners drive me crazy. I love all of you, but when you're half listening and you just pick and choose the little things that we say and throw that back, can do without that.
Oh, look at this. Andre, who was listening, we referenced him earlier. Gene, I wish RIT had a team. Sign me up to coach like yesterday.
I like it. Andre. Except, we have to talk about your allegiance there with the Raiders. I don't know about that. But yeah, if you were the head coach of RIT, we would take that.
Trade that in.
That'd be pretty good. Happy hour next. We've got a change in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks getting their head coach. We'll talk about that.
That's a story, but I think the more fascinating story is, hey, Washington.
Yeah. The stench of Daniel Snyder is a hard stench to wash off. And I think that's still a part of why they don't have their guy yet.
I said this yesterday. I think it's an attractive job. Number 2 overall pick, new owner with money. It might just be so messed up beyond our imagination.
Yeah, it's worse than we could have even possibly imagined. We'll get to that and more next with Happy Hour. And your phone calls welcome as well. At 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. Hey, happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's me, Mike Danger, for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. And if you're like me, you know what Super Bowl Sunday is all about. Get that best seat on the couch, grab your favorite snacks, and place some super bets. We had PJ on with us earlier today from BetQL, sharing some of his favorite plays from the Super Bowl. Hard not to like the Kansas City Chiefs, especially as an underdog. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or even 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, FanDuel also has bets for which players will score touchdowns, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/Mike to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/Mike. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
And W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Emmerich home tonight. They're taking on Syracuse. It's going to be Devin Levi starting in goal for Rochester. Don Stevens will have your call beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. Bobby Babich is the new defensive coordinator in Buffalo, but will he be calling the plays? Chris Brown on One Bill's Drive addressing the question.
Just because he's been named defensive coordinator, I don't think unilaterally means he's going to be the defensive play caller. I think it's reasonable to assume that, but we don't have clarity on that yet, and we may not for a little bit here, maybe until Coach McDermott talks at the Combine.
News from the NFL today where Seattle has a new head coach. Mike McDonald, the 36-year-old, previously the Ravens defensive coordinator. Atlas leaves the Washington Commanders as the only team with a head coaching vacancy. The New York Jets today firing assistant GM Rex Hogan. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I'm glad you're excited about Bobby Babich as defensive coordinator. If you're going to make me the guy, I want to call the plays.
No! Mike Danger.
Sean McDermott is a control freak. And I think everybody kind of recognizes that the Bills' defense, with Sean McDermott calling the plays, looked like a better defense with Sean McDermott having that additional level of control. To give that up, he's going to give up that element of his job and hand it over to a guy who's never done it before, feels like a bit of a reach.
Gene Battaglia.
It's not just calling the plays. That's what we as fans and the media will focus on. It's a big deal. But it's the game plan going into the week. That's kind of what Bobby Babich should be entrusted. I want Bobby Babich rolling his sleeves up and figuring out, all right, how do we defend here?
Bobby Babich? That's a strong name. We can now refer to the offense and defense as Bobby Joe.
We'll see what kind of condition the Sabres are in as a team because they've been better. More consistently inconsistent.
Emmerich's Crunch, starting at 7 tonight.
Playing Syracuse as many times as we've had to play them over the last 3 years has made us a better team.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, we have Emmerich's hockey for you tonight. I love how Seth Appert describes the Syracuse Crunch as miserable. They're miserable. You hate playing against a team like that. We'll see how the Emmerichs fare tonight. We'll have our play-by-play starting just after 7 o'clock here on The Fan. Rochester, we welcome you into happy hour in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, and appreciate you making us part of your afternoon drive at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, or maybe you're streaming the show on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester or on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. I'm Mike Danger. That's Gene Battaglia.
So Mike McDonald in Seattle, not to be confused with Mike McDaniel down in Miami, not to be confused with Josh McDaniels, who is actually looking for work.
Mm-hmm. What do we know about this guy? Well, we know that he kind of has risen through the ranks and spent time not just with Baltimore. He spent time with Jim Harbaugh and his staff at the University of Michigan. He's been the defensive coordinator for the past 2 seasons in Baltimore. This last season, they were the number 1 defense in points allowed and number 6 in yards allowed. 2022, number 3 and number 9 in the same 2 categories. So he's got a pretty good resume there with the Ravens, and now Seattle gets their guy.
Yeah, it's and boy, they went way younger. What, Pete Carroll was 72. This guy's 36. So you went from having the oldest coach in the NFL now to the youngest coach in the NFL.
The 6-year deal always strikes me as crazy for a first-time head coach. We saw it with Canales in Carolina, and maybe that's the assurance that a first-time head coach needs when you're going to a franchise that might be a little suspect or might have some storms on the horizon. And Seattle certainly has that with the pending sale of that organization here at some point. So to get that assurance, you go for the 6-year deal, but it just feels like, boy, that's a lengthy term. That's a lengthy term.
Why? You don't. If you're any good, you don't have to worry about it. And it's from the ownership standpoint. These guys rarely do get to like the last season. You're a coaching free agent. That hardly ever happens.
I mean, unless you're in Dallas. Dallas likes to do
things
differently.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah. So there you go. There's one remaining vacancy in the NFL for a head coach, and it is in D.C.
Did I have a bad take yesterday? Because when talking about Ben Johnson, we were just, look, does Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, not like money? You're going to, what, 5 times? I think that's conservative. You could get 5 times your salary if you become the head coach in Washington. And there's reports that he asked for more, whatever it is. Okay, that was the guy they targeted, but did Washington really have a plan B? I thought this was a good job, Danger. I thought, hey, number 2 overall pick in a draft where you can nearly get your pick of the litter in terms of quarterback, new head coach, you could start off with a new quarterback, and you've got a new owner who's willing to give you the resources, or is there just so much stench around
Well,
this?
do you have a new owner that's willing to give you the resources? I guess that's what we don't know. Like, you hear reports that Jim Harbaugh is going to make $16 million per year with the Chargers, and it's like, okay, I mean, it's Jim Harbaugh. I get that. What does a guy like Ben Johnson command as a first-time head coach? And he probably values himself knowing, hey, I'm going into a situation that's a little bit tarnished. I'm working for an owner who certainly has the money, and it's not like they have to disclose how much I'm making or how much they're paying me. Just pay me what I feel I'm worth, and this is what I feel I'm worth. And if you don't want to pony up, then fine, good luck out there. And maybe this isn't over. I mean, that's the other part of it. He's said publicly, I'm staying with Detroit. I want to run it back with Detroit. We've seen about faces happen before with these guys. Money talks. And if you really wanted Ben Johnson, and maybe it doesn't come to this, but if you really want him, what's your price? And you go get him. But I don't know that that's happening in D.C., and I think it does partially have to do with some of that Daniel Snyder stench that still surrounds the organization. It's going to take a little bit of time for their image to rehabilitate.
Yeah, no linkage to Belichick, but what's interesting is this story came out today, and I don't know if this is Belichick already planting seeds or whatnot. Well, actually, 2 stories. One out of Philadelphia that if Nick Sirianni didn't agree to the coordinators getting well, then he would have been gone, and the top candidate would have been Bill Belichick in Philadelphia. I'm sure he would have loved to be with the Eagles and a team that could kind of win right away. But then Jerry Jones in the last 24 hours just addressing, about Bill Belichick, and I could work with him. Oh, okay. I've already had a head coach.
Well, you do, and of course you could work with Bill Belichick, but I don't know that every owner can say the same thing, because working with Bill Belichick requires that you give up some of your control and you give it to him. And by the way, I think it is of note that both of the coaches that are in this Super Bowl have a lot of control within their organization. I think you need that when you're building an organization, a winning organization. And you certainly have it in Buffalo with the relationship that Beane and McDermott have. You know that Beane is ultimately the decision maker, but it's also McDermott's heavy influence on what direction they go. They work well together. They work in tandem. And McDermott, while he doesn't have the title of GM or any other additional titles other than head coach and defensive play caller, as far as we know that he has that much power and weight within the organization. You could argue that he has more power and weight in the organization than Brandon Beane does.
Yeah, you cannot forget the fact that Sean McDermott kind of sort of brought in Brandon Beane.
That's right.
Yeah.
But when you look at Andy Reid and the control that he has in Kansas City, they have a GM in Kansas City, but let's face it, it's Andy Reid's show. Same, I would say, for Kyle Shanahan. Like, Kyle Shanahan's the guy that wanted to go get Trey Lance. Kyle Shanahan's the guy that admitted a mistake and got off of Trey Lance, right? Like, Lynch is there. And again, much like you have in Buffalo, you have a GM and a head coach who you imagine are in direct communication often and work hand in hand. I don't know that the same could be said for a lot of these younger first-time head coaches who are just getting their start and working for a GM or working for a guy that's been there, whatever the case may be. Like, if you're looking at what they did in Tennessee and what they're, what they're doing in Atlanta, he's not a first-time head coach, but he certainly doesn't have the kind of weight. Morris doesn't have the kind of weight that Andy Reid or Sean McDermott has.
Yeah, no, Morris. Yeah, right. He was down in Tampa, and we barely remember that. It was so quick. I'm just surprised how experience doesn't seem to matter as the head coach. Like, if you lose your head coaching job right now, that is not the trend. We want young. We want a coordinator. We want somebody who is malleable with a GM. And I think ageism's also part of this.
But there is one instance where you can't point the finger to ageism. And I think it speaks more to your first point of we have to get somebody who is going to get along with our GM, and that's why Mike Vrabel isn't being considered or hasn't interviewed yet with Washington. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, when he got fired in Tennessee, my initial read on it was, okay, This is the ownership actually doing him a favor, as he wants really the New England gig. Well, little do we know, that was actually true, that Mr. Mayo, Gerard Mayo, who I once called Mr. Mayo because I couldn't remember, was he Jared or
Mayo?
Jared Mayo. Hi, Jared, would you come on with us? My name is Gerard. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayo.
Sorry, Mr. Mayo. Yeah, like Mike Vrabel, I thought that was the read, that Mike Vrabel was going there. No, and the Titans took the high road. Like, they didn't tell you why, which all teams should do. You don't want to plant a story why we let go of this coach.
Oh, I think it's pretty clear why they let go of him, right? He didn't get along with the GM.
Well, the first GM.
And the second GM.
Oh, the second GM.
Right. Because you built a team that I can't work with, or you got a guy that I can't work with, or whatever the case may be. I mean, with Vrabel, just from body language alone, did you get the sense that this guy was always frustrated and miserable? Just always frustrated and miserable with what his team was doing. You never really saw that guy look anything but exasperated as his team was losing games. And I imagine that the GM there, the new GM there, like, hey, the first GM you didn't get along with, and you have a case. He moved on from A.J. Brown prematurely and drafted, Malik Willis, and you didn't want that. But this new GM's got to work out, right? No, it's not going to work out. Okay, well, then you're gone.
Well, getting back to Washington here, because I don't know of any other candidates. We're not hearing like anything coming out of there. Slowick is going to stay with the Texans. That was another name being bandied around. Okay, the hot coordinator down there. No, he's not going to Washington. That should be another. Maybe that's another sign. Like, do
they do the thing that we haven't talked about a lot this offseason? And it's been an evergreen topic every offseason. He's there. He's in-house. He's interviewed. Do they do the thing that we have been saying for years should happen in the NFL? Do they give Eric Bieniemy the head coaching gig?
Maybe by default, that's what ends up happening. I don't think Eric Bieniemy did anything. I admire the fact that he bet on himself, right? Hey, I'm in Kansas City. I can't get interviews. What is it going to take? Andy Reid's
he got interviews. He just didn't get
legit. Yeah, right. I mean, like, he didn't get offers, I should say. Yeah, he was brought in, but nothing ever materialized. No, I don't expect that to happen either. That would have happened already. Unless it's really we don't have anybody else here.
If you're Eric Bieniemy and you know that you're plan C or plan D and they offer you the job, you take it, right? This is what you've been waiting for. This is the opportunity. It's there. There's nothing in your way. Or is everything that we've heard about Eric Bieniemy just really just media pumping him up? Like, why doesn't he have a job? He should have a job. Like, look, if he's not qualified, he's not qualified. I don't know if he's qualified.
There's also like a mark against him back in his college days that if somebody was going to like do a deep dive there, and that was one reason why at the University of Colorado that didn't
When we talked to our guy Craig Hoffman, who's there in the district, what did he say? Was it race? Did he just flat out say it's racism? He just flat out came out and said he didn't get it because of race. That's why he hasn't been named a head coach. What if that changes? What if the Commanders say, you know what? He's our guy. We've heard it for years. He should be a head coach in the NFL. Why isn't he a head coach in the NFL? Well, there's whispers that it's because of his race. All right, well, let's do that then. Let's do the right thing. I wonder if Hoffman would say that's at play here now and why they haven't named him the head coach. If he's head coaching material, what's the holdup? Why is he no longer head coaching material? One bad season with a sinking ship of an organization with a walking dead head coach? I think that's a fascinating element of this that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, he was given an interview for the job. You also have Anthony Weaver, who is the Ravens defensive line coach. Oh, and there's good old Dan Quinn kind of hanging around. So he loses out in Seattle. I don't know. That would be less than inspiring to bring in Dan Quinn. So sorry, Cowboy fans. I think you're going to be stuck with Dan Quinn.
I think Cowboy fans are okay with that. You just don't like how the team didn't show up when you needed them to show up.
They fell apart. Not in the playoff game, but the last 5 games of the season, that defense just kind of wilted.
Yeah, interesting that opening still exists in Washington. They haven't been able to pull the trigger on anybody that they've interviewed.
Vrabel has not interviewed with Washington.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't you? See, that's the thing. I think Atlanta, of all teams, I'm going to give Arthur Smith credit. They talk to anyone and everyone. They like, why wouldn't you? You have an opportunity. Give me your thoughts, and maybe you learn something in reverse there that you can apply. And even though you're not going to hire this guy.
You said Arthur Smith. Arthur Blank. Arthur Smith.
Yes.
New offensive coordinator
Sorry.
with Pittsburgh that everybody hates. Yeah.
Yeah, confusing my Arthur.
But yes, you're right. Blank did cast a wide net, and at minimum, you learn about the candidates that you're talking about, and maybe you learn something new about you that you can apply to your franchise or how your organization is run. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They do have their GM in Washington, right? They hired somebody in Washington already to be the GM, so they've got that in place. It's interesting that they're the last one, and you have to wonder how much of that is the remaining stench of the Snyder era around the Commanders.
At least we don't have like it was back in the fall. Where Deion Sanders is going to be a head coach in the NFL.
Nope.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's got Navy SEALs working out his team. Is that what the story is? Love that. Also today, while we have the moment here during happy hour, if you were listening to the show on Monday, one of our regulars on X, Peter, reached out to Sports Bar Nemesis, Jay Binkley, 610 Sports in Kansas City. On the slide.
All right, like time out right there. That's a betrayal of trust, right? Like Danger and I were like-minded in this. We come back Monday and we figure out, all right, who do we want to invite on the show? And I'm sorry, I think I have a feel for Bills fans. We don't want to talk about the Chiefs. No more Chiefs talk. No more. Yes, they're in the Super Bowl, but I don't need to talk about how great the Chiefs are and how great Patrick Mahomes and blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. And who are we talking to on Monday? Well, we're talking to a guest on Monday, and I get a text. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, you got to be kidding me. So I go over, I show Danger my phone, and it's from Binkley. Hey, do you guys want me to call in? Heck no, I don't want you to call in, but he's a friend. I don't want to say no.
How do you politely tell him?
How do you tell him no?
Thanks, but no thanks.
No thanks, but no thanks. Well, little I know, we're being set up the whole time because he's listening, he's laughing, he's just pointing the finger at us, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and Lily doesn't know we have caller ID. I didn't know the whole time this was Peter engineering this.
Yeah, so one of our regulars doing producer work behind the scenes, sliding into Binkley's DMs and requesting that Binkley call us to egg us on. Peter it should be noted, Peter is also a Jets fan, and he's on 2 weeks probation. We're not going to read any of his tweets for the next 2 weeks. But because he's a Jets fan, I found this article today from The Athletic interesting, and we can bring it up because it's the off season, and what better way to spend the off season than looking at other teams pointing and laughing?
Yeah, it should give you hope as a Bills fan, because step one for the Bills, if they want to get another crack at this, well, you got to win the division. Let's look at the teams they'll be competing with, right? Okay, New England, they don't have a quarterback and a first-time head coach. Okay, we'll check back next year with them. Well, let's look at the Miami Dolphins. Oh, they don't have a defensive coordinator yet. Oh, you got to pay Tua. Yeah, it's going to be tough kind of replicating that, but good luck with that. Brings us to the New York Jets, Mike Danger. The New York Jets, who, by the way, are now only 4 seasons from matching the Buffalo Bills' 17-year drought. They are now at 13. 13 years, the New York Jets.
I think they can get there.
I think they're going strong.
I'm a believer. We want greatness. Don't just settle for 13 years of a drought. No, break the record. Get to do it. Go all in. And boy, this piece in The Athletic today lays out just how the Jets could actually pull that off. Because if it doesn't go well this year with a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, they're going to clear the decks again and start from scratch again in New York.
That's the problem, where they thought, all right, well, then at least Aaron Rodgers will come in and we'll prop up Zach Wilson. Now, this is the part of the story that I think is the least juicy, but from a football standpoint, we were calling the summer. In the summer, everybody looks good. Everybody feels good. Everything is great in the summer. And there's Aaron Rodgers and like, hey, and Zach Wilson, he's the older brother I never had. And I'm going to mentor him. BS. You're not mentoring him. You're just saying that you're going to do that because it's Aaron Rodgers and this is my job. And what happened the second that Aaron Rodgers got hurt? Well, he was flying in from California and he did no work with Zach Wilson. So much for mentorship. By the end of the season, Zach Wilson couldn't stand the guy. Like, he just realized what he was.
Well, and the end of the season, you get benched, and you're basically like, you've been told by your coach that you're being benched. You're not going to play the rest of the season.
And you're not going to play again.
And we're going to trade you in the offseason. Basically laid it out for him. Like, you're having an honest conversation with him until it's not an honest conversation and you have to go back to him in a few weeks. And that's where the story of Wilson saying, I'm not going in, I don't want to play, comes into play. It's like, well, he's saying that because he was told just a couple of weeks earlier that he's not going to be a part of the plan for the future.
So if you remember that Black Friday game against the Dolphins, that's Tim Boyle with a pick six Hail Mary.
Brutal.
Like, they lose 30-0, just shameful. Well, that's so bad. We got to go back to Wilson. And then we came back and we talked about this. Like, it got out that, hey, Wilson has some trepidation going back in. You're not really a football player. You're a All right, well, then on Tuesday, because that's his Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers going on McAfee, lighting the Jets on fire. We have to stop with all these distractions. These leaks have to stop.
Yeah.
So who reacts to this? The head coach, like he's working for Aaron Rodgers. And this is the part of the story I love. So the next day, Robert Saleh calls his staff. And it's almost like he's offering everybody an olive branch. Says, gentlemen, we have a leak in the staff. And if you admit to this right now, you will not be punished. So who would like to step forward? Crickets. Okay, well, then I'm going to take your cell phones. We're going to figure this out.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Yeah. To adults. Not your teenage daughter, to adults.
To adults.
Yeah, that's great.
To adults. Like, and you're reacting to this based on some guy that's across the country who's not really with your team right now.
Yeah.
You invited that into your locker room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it starts at the top, man. We say it all the time. Dysfunction starts at the top.
There's nothing dysfunctional about Woody Johnson. He's cool. He's a cool cat, dude.
Now, when I saw him week one wearing that gaudy chain, the shirt open, like, what is this? That's the owner of the New York freaking Jets. Billionaire owner acting like that, looking like that. You know, like, we get on quarterbacks for wearing their hats backward. What are we saying about the owner, the billionaire owner that shows up blinged out?
That is just an alien living in his alien world that nobody would check him. If you came in here, Danger, and you were something ridiculous, be like, dude, what are you doing? Nobody's saying that to a billionaire.
Yeah.
So that's just years of living in your own world here where nobody's going to check you.
Right. And that was all I needed to be like, that's the owner of the Jets? No wonder they are where they are. And it's not like they haven't been through this before. This is the exact same storyline from Brett Favre, with the only exception being they didn't release Rodgers. Will they release Rodgers? They can't release Rodgers.
No, he's there next year.
He's back next year on a repaired Achilles, and at age 40. Look, the only hope that offense has is for him to get the ball out quick. I know they'll address offensive line as best they can, but if you're Aaron Rodgers, behind the offensive line that they had this year, you're not making it through the season. I don't care if it was 4 plays or 400 plays. You're not making it through the season.
Well, the bulk of this, too, we're talking about Saleh and Rodgers. As you would expect, Nathaniel Hackett and his deficiencies just kind of magnified. One source quoting that there has never been a coach that looked at so little film during training camp, never making adjustments. The week 2 game against Micah Parsons, the offensive line coach is saying, Dwayne Brown can't do this. We've got to come up with a plan. Nope. So Micah Parsons feasted 2 sacks, 4 quarterback pressures. Big win for the Cowboys in week 2, as you might expect. And Hackett, it gives you this impression he's the guy in college that wouldn't study until 2 a.m. the night before the exam. Like, literally, he would go through the week, and his other coaches wouldn't hear from him.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing all week?
He's buddies with Rodgers. That's basically where it ends.
Yeah.
To keep the college analogy going, they're frat brothers. I mean, they're in it together, and that's pretty much it. But he's not really good. I mean, all you needed, like, head coaches don't go out of their way to slam others in their profession. But what Sean Payton said at the beginning of the season about Nathaniel Hackett was fantastic. And it turns out probably true. That was one of the worst coaching jobs he had ever seen. What he had left behind in Denver was an absolute mess. And now you're hearing a lot of the same out of the Jets organization in terms of what Nathaniel Hackett brings to the table. It's not very much.
Now, you have this other story today. Danger, is this related or not? I never heard of Rex Hogan. He's the assistant GM. He was fired. Apparently not today. Just news came out today that he was fired. Oh, excuse me. Mutual parting ways.
I wonder if Salah got a hold of his cell phone.
That's it.
I wonder if he looked at his cell phone and said, aha!
Wait a second. Diana Rossini's in your cell phone.
Yeah.
You did this.
There's a receipt of you and Diana Rossini having drinks at a bar? Aha! Get out of here. Rodgers dictated that you need to go. We need to stop the leaks. It's a mess. It's a mess. And if you're a Bills fan, it's got to at least make you think going into next year, all right, well, there's a team that is going to remain what we thought they are, what we think they are. And Salah's probably best suited to be a defensive coordinator. He doesn't look like he's a head coach. I don't think he's a very good head coach. I don't think he's handled some of these players and this locker room is anything to write home about. I get the frustration with Zach Wilson, but man, you can't tell a kid 1 week, hey, we're going to trade you in the offseason, ride the pine the rest of the season, and then 2 weeks later with your tail between your legs go, hey, yeah, we kind of need you to go back in there.
It also brings up the fact, too, and this is what bringing Rodgers in is problematic. He's really the de facto GM. He goes down, and they're having a meeting. Okay, should we bring in Chad Henne? The name Joe Flacco actually comes up. There was another name. All these veterans that are, well, they're not great, but better than Tim Boyle.
Yeah.
And certainly Zach Wilson, you know what he was at that point. But no, they didn't want to upset Rodgers. They don't want anybody winning. I think how crazy that is.
Yeah.
And then there's another source, another AFC GM, as the story goes, that talking about, no, Aaron Rodgers is not the assistant GM. Joe Douglas is the assistant GM.
It's fantastic. And then you got guys that you brought in, guys like Alan Lazard, not making making waves with some of his comments when he's not putting up the kind of stat line that commands the money that he's earning. The defense frustrated with the offense. Just an overall unorganized, dysfunctional mess.
Robert Saleh's not a leader. That's my takeaway from this.
I think he can lead a defense, but I think that's where it ends. I don't think he's a good head coach.
Well, he's making privately the Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio couldn't win in Denver because he didn't have a quarterback.
He did the studies. He looked into how coaches manage through not having a quarterback, and it's all the same. Like, we got great defense. We got a great defense. So you have a great defense that resents the hell out of your offense, and now you've got a divided locker room and no unity because you have an offense that can't score points and a defense that's doing everything they can to do their job. You've got a diva quarterback who brings in all of his friends who are critical of the team's performance when they're not performing at the level they need to be performing at. Again, just a dysfunctional mess. Cheers, Peter. That's your New York Jets. Thanks for reaching out to Binkley in the DMs.
Makes me feel better about the Mets when I read about the Jets, too. Let's not mistake that. 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers.
They are the baseball equivalent of the New York Jets. I mean, they have a little bit more. They've got more winning on their side, but they get to the postseason, I guess, a little bit more than the Jets do.
Yeah, true.
But, yeah, come on. I mean, Jets fans and Mets fans, they're kind of parallel, right? They live parallel lives.
Notice I've been staying down. It's the new me. Talk about New Year's resolutions, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, everything's going to be fine this year. And then I see it. The Mets will get in as a wild card, and then I will just kind of nod and look at people like Catalana and Fates right in the eye.
So we don't get you boasting in the month of May about the Mets at all?
No. Roll the tape.
Okay.
Roll.
All right.
Got it.
I think the Mets are doing to you what the Knicks did to you years ago.
No, maybe that's also it too.
Yeah,
the Knicks.
The Knicks are good now.
Yeah, the Knicks are good.
They're playing well, but you're not allowing yourself to buy in.
I think everybody else is like, could this actually be like Trista last night? She's saying this is a team that could go to the finals. Whoa. It was a fantastic month. They're doing things that haven't been done in decades here. Yeah, I'm watching the Knicks again. This is fun.
I like Brunson. It's a fun player.
I like OG. Look, he's out of the lineup right now.
Yeah.
Randall will be coming back. They're doing this with a couple guys in the lineup.
Yeah. No, they're fun. At least they're fun. We got to get to shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, we will be talking about the Knicks, but the storyline on some other team in New York City that we also forget about. Homecoming night tonight, Danger, for Kevin Durant. We'll get to that. Syracuse basketball. Yeah, can we put the rest of any postseason talk? I think we can. Update on ticket prices. And finally, just kind of a story about college basketball I found funny.
Last call on the way before 6 o'clock as well. We go to the phones at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Breaking news from the Fan Rochester is presented by BetQL. Smarter bets start with BetQL. Download the BetQL app or visit BetQL.com today.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in the Flower City. The Amherst taking on Syracuse. Head coach Seth Thappert expects this to be a battle.
They're miserable, and that makes them great. And they're a hard team to play. They're big, they're heavy, their decore's massive, they're physical, they're very structured. Probably the most structured team in our division in terms of defensive style of play.
Devin Levi down from Buffalo. Levi to get the starting goal tonight for the Amherst. Don Stevens will be by at 7 o'clock with the call tonight here on the Fan Rochester. Only one head coaching vacancy left in the NFL. That's in Washington. Today, the Seattle Seahawks hiring Mike McDonald. McDonald, a 36-year-old that was the Ravens defensive coordinator. New York Jets today firing assistant GM Rex Hogan. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The only way to take the Fan Rochester with you is the free Odyssey app. Download it today and follow the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Round of shots in the sports bar. We were talking about it going into break. At minimum, the Knicks are fun to watch again.
They are now the third seed in the East. They leapfrog past Philadelphia. And for the first time since 1994, they won 14 games in a calendar month. Now, last night I could say, oh, Utah, who cares? Well, it was the second night on a back-to-back. They were Monday in Charlotte winning. That's impressive when you consider that both Julius Randle and O.J. Anunoby were out because of injury. Now, Philadelphia losing at Golden State. The Knicks now in third place. Speaking of Philadelphia, MVP candidate Joel Embiid was to undergo an MRI today. Embiid has missed the Sixers' previous 2 games because of knee soreness. Embiid missing 3 games earlier in January due to left knee swelling. Ramona Shelburne reporting the injury is something that they're just going to have to manage for the remainder of the season. Doesn't sound too serious. Although, consider this, he can only miss 5 more games before becoming ineligible for postseason awards, including the MVP. That's because of the league's new rule requiring a minimum of 65 games to qualify.
Is that supposed to motivate players from load management? Is that what that is?
Yes, that's correct.
So, if you're Embiid, it feels like this is this is an evergreen topic every year at this time. We're talking about how Embiid is starting to break down a little bit.
Right. Well, does Philadelphia do him a solid? Because when he's out there, and again, point per game pace, the point per minute, I should say, point per minute pace, like that is MVP. You're talking Will Chamberlain type of
He's the best player in the league.
Yeah. Do they do him a solid, like put him out there for the first 30 seconds, whatever it is, and okay, you're playing, but you're not playing.
But if it's more than just soreness of the knee, like what is it with the knee? Is it just being overworked? Is it a swelling? Is it does it need to be drained? I guess I want to know what that MRI is all about.
Yeah, so that's kind of a storyline to follow. Boston College. Oh, before we get to that, NBA tonight on the schedule. There was one game on ABC tonight. Phoenix at Brooklyn. First game for KD back in Brooklyn. Get ready for the tribute video.
Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing tribute videos?
Apparently there is going to be a tribute video.
He did nothing for you. I mean, he showed up. Okay, I guess he battled through the adversity of having Kyrie.
He got you. You lost to Milwaukee in the conference finals the one year.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Like the center of drama.
Yeah.
Who cares?
No.
Boston College went on a 21-0 run against Syracuse. Syracuse not a bubble team, folks.
No,
sorry.
you sure?
No.
When you see a team like Georgia Tech rise up and beat North Carolina at home, you don't think Syracuse can do something like that?
Syracuse had won the last 11 against Boston College in the series dating back to 2017. Oops. Syracuse now 2-4 on the road. The defense couldn't get any stops. Boston College 30 of 50 from the floor, 10 of 20 from 3. And they out-rebounded Syracuse by 10. The Orange play at Wake Forest Saturday night.
I will say, I mean, they didn't quit. I mean, the Orange had every reason to be dejected, but they were fighting even to the very end. But man, when you look around the rest of the ACC, I'm with you. I'm like, oh God, I don't see how these guys stack up. Even a team that we normally would like look down on, like a Georgia Tech, can rise up and beat anybody on a night like last night, where they beat North Carolina. North Carolina is the third best team in the nation, and it didn't matter. Georgia Tech did what they needed to do. The ACC is stacked, and Syracuse just doesn't match up.
Syracuse is going to be like the 8 or 9 seed. They will get flicked away like a bug, and you don't make even the NIT. So it's going to be a quiet. Hopefully, I'm wrong on that. Ticket market for the Super Bowl. We could set the record for average price. According to third-party data, the least expensive price to get in right now is over $8,500. The most expensive, a suite located at the 30-yard line for $60,000.
$60,000 for the suite. $8,500 plus for the cheapest ticket?
When I say suite, I mean it's a seat in the suite. It's like a private club kind of thing. So there's just one seat for $60,000. So the average right now is at $11,000 a seat. The record actually, and I don't know if this would count or not, it was the COVID Super Bowl, limited seating driving the price just above $15,000.
Yeah, look. I might talk a big game and say, like, hey, if the Bears make it to the Super Bowl, I'm going to find a way to go to the Super Bowl because you never know when your team can get there, right? It's a special, special thing. And if you're a Bills fan, you probably allow yourself to imagine a world where you make the Super Bowl. Are you prepared to make that sort of an investment?
I can't afford that. Like, literally, you're restructuring things in your own finances or you're taking out a loan.
You need some sort of in or some sort of... You need to ride the coattails of somebody important. And by the way, is somebody who went to it, and I know this was a while ago, but it hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse. The Super Bowl as an event on site is kind of overrated. You're not really with fans. You're with friends and family members of players from around the NFL and, of course, all the corporate sponsors, and you've heard it all before. It's an event, and I'm glad I got to check it off my bucket list. But if you're telling me I would have to pay, what's the average? $11,000 for one seat. I don't know if I'm doing it. That's a lot, man. Even if it's you never know. This might be the one time.
Well, put it this way. I mean, if it's a team where you're with fans, Sabres Cup final, now I'm going way, way back. I was in that building for Game 6. Like all the electric. Against the Stars. Like, those are the things that you remember.
I was I was at that game, too. I was also at the comeback game against the Oilers.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you weren't...
no, I was there.
You weren't in Rochester at that point.
You were there. I was there.
Wait a second. So if I went in the comeback game, I would have been 21. You would have been 17. You drove from Minnesota all the way to Buffalo?
Yeah, I had we carpooled road trip.
Oh.
Yeah, I was there. So is everybody. Ask anybody. They were there. They'll tell you. They'll tell you the story of Frank Reich. Everybody knows.
I'm going to bring in my ticket stub. I will prove it to you.
Okay.
Story, and we didn't get to this one. I think it's worth bringing up. The story that makes you ask, why didn't you do this sooner? USA Hockey is now mandating that all players 18 and under are going to wear a neck guard. The new policy also extends to 19-year-olds at the boys, girls junior level. It was former Penguin Adam Johnson's death that caused this change. The 29-year-old Johnson took a blade to the neck in November. By the way, the authorities still don't know what to do over there in regards to that case. So.
Yeah, that's a mess. It's terrible. More safety, good thing. The NHL this week has been unbearable.
Yeah.
Unbearable.
Yeah, I mean, this story of Calgary putting out this tweet, it is the most tone-deaf thing I ever read. So one of these 5, again, terrible allegation in regards to sexual misconduct in regards to the 2018 Canadian junior team. Okay. And as it turns out, 4 of these 5 guys are playing in the NHL today. So they're being required to turn themselves in. We don't know anything else. London police would let them do their job, right? Okay. So back on January 21st, the Flames put out a tweet for Dylan Dubé, one of these players, saying that Dylan Dubé is taking a leave of absence to work on his mental health, and he'll be cared for by mental health professionals.
Oh.
And that we ask for privacy at this time.
So they put that out like as a shield because they knew, or you think they didn't know and they were just going to say?
Well, because then yesterday everybody this took off. Like, what on earth? How could you? That's revolting.
Yeah,
that is revolting.
Using mental health
that
as a shield for this terrible thing
that you're accused of.
Yeah.
Like, that is revolting. Now, do you buy it? Because then the Flames quickly said, we had no idea what this was all about. Okay. Then you're ignorant, and that's just as bad.
Yeah. Well, I was actually just talking about the schedule this week because it's been pretty bad. I mean, the games that they're offering up this week leading up to the All-Star game.
Oh, that too.
Just brutal. I mean, I want to consume more right now, knowing that we don't have football this weekend. We have to wait until the Super Bowl and that the season's winding down. And what do I get? Sharks and Ducks?
I was listening to Marty Baron today.
Sens and Red Wings?
He was going off on this. Why don't we have Connor McDavid in prime time? Why don't we have Boston and the Rangers? Why don't we have all teams going all in except the Sabres and other teams? Have a week off. And here's a memo to the NHL about your All-Star game. No one cares.
Yes, but in their bubble, in their alien world, in their vacuum, in their echo chamber, Gene.
Echo chamber is correct.
Everything is fine. And none of this negative stuff is going to affect them. They're going to be just fine. Look at the pomp and circumstance of All-Star Weekend in Toronto. I mean, like it's on, man. Nobody's going to say anything negative. None of these negative narratives are going to stop the NHL PR machine, man. They are all about it. It's an All-Star game, man.
Yeah, you had Monday night NBA saying, you know what? Yeah, people are going to have like a fixin' for football. Come on in and watch. 12 games in the NBA on Monday night compared to 1 for the NHL.
All right, quickly, one more because we're running late.
Yeah, just one college basketball note. Fan bases, student athletes, you can do things to help your home team. That's what makes it fun when you're a college student. Let's try to distract the opponent at the free throw line. This comes to us from Holy Cross, of all places, against Boston University. The Crusaders getting assists from their swimming team. Men's swim practice had just wrapped up. The guys decided they could help out the basketball team by going out in their Speedos and waving their arms up and down.
Oh, good.
Yeah, the swimmers got loud applause for the efforts. The Boston University player commonly hitting both free throws.
So it didn't really work. They tried.
They tried.
That's good. That's a different level of focus by Boston University. I can appreciate that. Last call next, if we have time, 866-4326. The Fan Rochester. Guys, the moment is here. It's your chance to shine. The spot that Del Monte has the secret for the best Valentine's Day gift ever. Nothing says I love you more than a gift card to the spot at Del Monte. They may not tell you what they actually want for Valentine's Day, but a gift card from the spot at Del Monte will show how much you've been paying attention. Gift cards are available for purchase in-store or online at delmontespa.com.
Sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Last call on The Fan. We welcome you back into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Appreciate you making us part of your afternoon routine. However you may be listening, the free to download Odyssey app locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950, or the video stream that we have up live for you on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Tomorrow, we talk some Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I think the Senior Bowl is the one event, Danger, where the practices are way more interesting than the actual thing itself. You won't be watching probably on Saturday, but you want to know, hey, which wide receivers? What about this kid from Georgia? We're going to talk to one of the best. That's Thor Nystrom.
He's our guy on the scene. Thor Nystrom joins us from Mobile tomorrow at 4:25. If you miss Sal Capaccio, if you miss PJ Glasser, get him on demand now in the Odyssey app. Search out the Sports Bar, JR Sport Brief. Next.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM.